Chapter 427. A few days after the release of White Knight, its sales figures were steadily rising due to pre-order readers' recommendations and Yang Yi's fan group's internal dissemination. However, it was worth mentioning that on the Sahara Online Mall's review page, it could be seen that the book was not a novel that everyone loved. The reviews were very polarized. Some gave it a very high rating. For example, many people sighed at Yang Yi's imagination and praised that the book would be a great work of mystery fiction. Others said that they could not read it at all because the book was too dark. The male and female protagonists were actually a little antisocial and anti-human. That was indeed the case. However, even the buyers who said that they could not read it rarely gave the book a low score. They still praised Yang Yi's writing skills and narrative ability. Not liking it was just a matter of personal preference. They did not deny the excellence of the book. Therefore, although the influence of the book had not yet been brewed, its Sahara rating was already high. It was not worse than the two popular works, Soldier's Assault and Drawing Sword. However, today, Sahara Publishing's deputy editor, Lu Benji, called Yang Yi. He did not talk about sales and reviews. Instead, he gave Yang Yi feedback on the recent readers' letters, saying that many readers hoped that Yang Yi would hold a signing event. The readers' curiosity about Yang Yi was bursting. "I'm not holding a signing event. This is all an old matter. I don't like to show my face in public." Yang Yi still refused. Lu Benji was not very surprised. He had long known that Yang Yi would say that. Then, he talked about the new initiatives of the publishing house. Yang Yi had neglected to take care of his fan group before, so the current fan group was in a scattered state. This was actually a huge waste of resources. Now that Sahara Publishing was fully responsible for Yang Yi's literary affairs, they decided to help him integrate his fans and form an official fan group in place of Yang Yi. In other words, they would open a separate communication community for Yang Yi, similar to Cheba, to gather people and discuss Yang Yi's works or related issues here. This way, if Yang Yi released a new book in the future, it could also be promoted together. "That's a good idea. What do you need me to do?" Yang Yi agreed. "Boss, we need you to take some time to interact with netizens in this communication community. Then, we will organize some activities. We may need you to provide some signed books, signed photos, and other rewards as support," Lu Benji said. "Signed books are fine, but signed photos are out of the question," Yang Yi said, somewhat dumbfounded. "I'm not a little girl. Why would I ask for autographed photos?" This matter was settled just like that. After Yang Yi put away his phone, he smiled at Lan Hao Kai in front of him and said, "I'm sorry, Big Brother Lan." Today, Yang Yi was called out by Lan Hao Kai. The two of them were going to take a look at the fitness center where Chen Shuyun's father, Chen Guoqiang, was at. Last time, after climbing down the mountain, Lan Hao Kai asked Chen Guoqiang what kind of fitness method a fat person like him should choose if he wanted to lose weight and maintain his health. Chen Guoqiang recommended boxing to Lan Hao Kai. It was not that he wanted to boast, but boxing had indeed become the first choice of fitness for many rich people. This was because if it was a non-competitive type of boxing, it was not as scary as everyone thought. Practicing boxing could not only increase one's strength and improve one's reflexes, it could also promote the overall healthy development of the body. One had to know that boxing was a sport that required the use of both hands and feet, as well as the use of the whole body and the use of the brain. It was far more muscular than running, bench pressing, and other sports. Furthermore, unlike yoga and dance, which were more feminine, boxing was very manly. Therefore, Lan Hao Kai's interest was piqued. He took some time out today to try out a boxing class. However, it would be too boring to play alone, so Lan Hao Kai dragged his good friend, Yang Yi, along. Because they were sitting in Lan Hao Kai's luxury car, everything Yang Yi said was heard by Lan Hao Kai. Lan Hao Kai gave a different opinion about Yang Yi's attitude. "Little brother Yang, I think your attitude of not wanting to show your face in public is wrong." Lan Hao Kai poured a cup of iced yogurt drink for Yang Yi. These were all placed in the fridge of his luxury car. The back of the extended luxury car was like a small private room. Lan Hao Kai's fridge also had red wine and imported wine, but it was inconvenient to drink these today. "What do you mean?" Your wife is a big star, right? Although your relationship has not been made public, paper cannot cover the fire. There will be a day when the reporters will expose it. If you don't increase your fame now, when the public finds out, they will definitely think that you are living off a woman and not worthy of your wife. Lan Hao Kai and Yang Yi were straightforward and said without hiding anything. As long as two people have a deep relationship, they will not be affected by public opinion. Yang Yi said confidently. Moreover, we know our own situation. Why do we have to cater to the public's opinion? People are social animals. You live in this society, so it's impossible not to be affected. It's fine if a man is strong and a woman is weak, but if a man is weak and a woman is strong, men will always be laughed at. I don't know about Murphy, but when the time comes, I'm afraid you will be the first to suffer. Lan Hao Kai also saw Yang Yi as a brother, which was why he nagged so much. All right. Big brother Lan, I will seriously consider it and think of a way to solve it. Yang Yi smiled and waved his hand, saying, We're almost there. We should get ready to get off. What's the point of talking about this? Lan Hao Kai did not know about Yang Yi's real situation, but Yang Yi himself knew. He was Mu Ziyang, a famous author, a big boss with a net worth in the hundreds of millions, and a transmigrator reborn. What man is weak and woman is strong? It doesn't exist. The fitness center that Chen Guoqiang worked at was located in the bustling area of Tingshan district. Not only was it very close to the luxurious area where Lan Hao Kai and the others lived, but it was also very close to several large buildings in Tingshan district. It specialized in the business of the rich. Therefore, the scale of this fitness center was also very large. It had rented the 2nd to 6th floors of a large building. Whether it was the normal fitness area or the areas for individual activities such as dance, yoga, and boxing, they all had their own separate floors. Chen Guoqiang came down to welcome them. He brought Lan Hao Kai and Yang Yi, as well as Lan Hao Kai's bodyguards, up to the boxing gym on the 6th floor. The entire floor was clear at a glance. There were no partitions, only fully equipped boxing rings. There were also some punching bags and pair balls for individual practice, as well as some simple back and arm training equipment. The main thing was still the boxing ring. There were many boxing trainers in the boxing gym, and the customers here were all people who could afford one-on-one private trainers. They trained directly on the boxing ring with the trainers. Not bad. Lan Hao Kai looked around and nodded in satisfaction. Yang Yi glanced at him and laughed in his heart. This guy probably saw that the equipment here was relatively new, so he made this judgment. After all, he was a visual animal. Yang Yi was more observant. He took a few glances and could see that the boxing trainers here were of different standards. Some were like Chen Guoqiang, who had some real skills and had participated in competitions. Some were probably rookies who had trained with trainers for 2 years, or had been sparring partners for others, and then applied to be trainers. Of course, in normal teaching, the average person would not be able to tell the difference in their standards, and they would not show the students actual combat. Chapter 428. However, Yang Yi did not want to stop others from making money. Anyway, they had Chen Guoqiang's connections. When the time came, he could just ask him to help pick a good coach. Today's experience class was taught by Chen Guoqiang personally. Lan Hao Kai still showed a strong interest. He even bought a set of boxing clothes, took the bag from the bodyguard, and went to the changing room. Yang Yi, aren't you going to change? Chen Guoqiang asked with a smile while waiting for Lan Hao Kai. Yang Yi shook his head, smiled, and pointed at his inconspicuous sportswear. He said, "This is fine too. It's just an experience." After a while, Lan Hao Kai came out of the changing room with a strong aura. He was like a real boxer, wearing red trousers, a red battle robe, and a hoodie. "Come on!" Lan Hao Kai shouted excitedly as he bumped his fists. However, Lan Hao Kai did not buy all the equipment for the first time, such as boxing gloves, headgear, and so on. He temporarily borrowed the boxing club's boxing gloves. He did not need the headgear because it was not time for actual combat. Chen Guoqiang taught him to put it on. Yang Yi also put on a pair of boxing gloves. After getting on the boxing ring, Lan Hao Kai took off his battle robe and handed it to the bodyguard below the ring. As soon as he turned around, Lan Hao Kai was shivering from the cold. As expected, he could not be handsome for more than 3 seconds. The temperature in spring was still a little low. Lan Hao Kai was only wearing a singlet boxing suit. His arms were exposed, and his white fat jiggled. However, such a thick layer of fat didn't have any protection against the cold. Come, do a warm-up exercise with me first. After you're done, your body will be warmed up, and you won't feel cold. Chen Guoqiang was experienced. He immediately led Lan Hao Kai to do a warm-up exercise. Yang Yi was at the side. He didn't put on airs. Since he was here to accompany Lan Hao Kai to experience the game, he also treated himself as a newbie and obediently followed along to warm up. Head movements, shoulder movements, and elbow movements were considered simple. However, when it came to the front and back leg movements, as well as the side leg movements, Lan Hao Kai couldn't do it anymore. He forced himself to bend his knees, but after he opened his legs a little, he could not sink any further. His chubby elephant legs were trembling with all their might. Finally, he could not hold on any longer and sat back down on the boxing ring. No, this is too difficult for me. Lan Hao Kai waved his hand, but he still looked enviously at Yang Yi, who was bending down effortlessly. I can't learn it. It had such good flexibility. Chen Guoqiang still had a way. He got out of the boxing ring and took a few skipping ropes. He smiled and said, Old Lan, you should have no problem skipping ropes, right? Of course, I didn't ask you to skip a lot. 10 in one set. After you finish one set, take a breather, and do the next set. A total of 3 sets. Can you do it? Skipping ropes was still a problem for Lan Hao Kai. After all, his body and weight were there. That was why Chen Guoqiang gave him such a low requirement, and even helped him make the skipping rope the largest length possible. I'll try. Lan Hao Kai gritted his teeth and took the skipping rope. I don't need it. Yang Yi waved his hand at Chen Guoqiang, who also handed him a skipping rope. Yang Yi knew that skipping rope was the best warm-up exercise, but he didn't want to stimulate Lan Hao Kai too much. This time, he came to the fitness center to accompany Lan Hao Kai to try out boxing and help him lose weight. He wasn't here to be competitive and destroy Lan Hao Kai's confidence. Lan Hao Kai's wrist flicked the skipping rope, and then he jumped up with all his might. He didn't jump high, but he jumped over the skipping rope that was thrown to his feet. The timing was good. However, in the next second, when Lan Hao Kai landed, Yang Yi and Chen Guoqiang felt the whole boxing ring shake. Bang! They didn't know if there was a hole in the boxing ring, but it felt like the ground was shaking. The earthquakes and mountains sway appeared a total of 10 times. Lan Hao Kai's perseverance was not bad. He actually managed to persevere. Although he was panting in the end and his legs went soft, he still managed to complete a set of skipping rope. Very good, Old Lan. Come, take a break. Let's do another set. Chen Guoqiang clapped. I can't. Lan Hao Kai shook his head and said while panting, one more set. I'm afraid I'll have to go back lying down today. Wait for me to take a break. I'll go straight to boxing. Yang Yi looked at Lan Hao Kai's condition and smiled at Chen Guoqiang. Take it slow. Brother Lan hasn't trained in a long time. He can't train too hard on his first try. Lan Hao Kai took a long time to catch his breath. The three of them chatted for a while about Chen Guoqiang's current work situation. For example, they found out that Chen Guoqiang wasn't just a boxing coach, but also the director of teaching at the boxing gym. Of course, the so-called director of teaching was also a modern title. Using the title of head instructor would be more appropriate. After Lan Hao Kai recovered, Chen Guoqiang taught them boxing. Lan Hao Kai was a rookie, and Lan Hao Kai didn't understand complicated movements. Chen Guoqiang started teaching Lan Hao Kai simple left and right punches. Chen Guoqiang was even afraid that Lan Hao Kai wouldn't be able to accept so much at once, so he only taught Lan Hao Kai hand movements and footwork. He didn't instruct him for the time being, and let him move according to his own habits. However, Lan Hao Kai was in high spirits. Perhaps all men had a warm-blooded heart. Lan Hao Kai waved his gloved fists and punched the target held by Chen Guoqiang. His face was full of excitement, and he forgot about his fatigue. When you punch, don't be too hasty. Slow down. Look at the target before you punch. Remember your movements. Even if you punch, you have to place your fist beside your cheek in a defensive posture. After you punch, remember not to be greedy. Pull back your fist and return to your original posture. Chen Guoqiang corrected Lan Hao Kai's mistakes as he let him punch. Lan Hao Kai learned pretty well, but he didn't forget about Yang Yi. After practicing for a while, he waved his hand and asked Yang Yi to try. Don't always let me play alone. You come and practice too. Let me tell you, when the time comes, you can also apply for a membership. Let's work out together and fight for our health. Lan Hao Kai laughed. Yang Yi laughed. He didn't refuse and took over Lan Hao Kai's position. Then, according to Chen Guoqiang's instructions, he casually threw a set of 4 punches left and right. Finally, he pulled back his fist beside his cheek and got into a ready posture. There was nothing strange about the movements. It was the same as what Chen Guoqiang taught him. The speed of the punches wasn't fast, and most of the strength was restrained. Yang Yi came to play with his friends. He didn't want to show off, so his performance was normal. But no matter how normal it was, Chen Guoqiang could still see the difference. Yang Yi's learning was too standard. He curiously asked, Yang Yi, have you learned boxing before? Nope. Yang Yi shook his head. Lan Hao Kai explained for him, hey, boxing is nothing. You forgot, Brother Yang was in the army. He trained, so his skills are naturally extraordinary. Yang Yi smiled and shook his head. He didn't refute. This was just a small episode. Lan Hao Kai practiced for a while, and his physical strength was almost exhausted. After all, he hadn't exercised for a long time, so he had to do it step by step. You have classes for children here? When he went to apply for a membership, Lan Hao Kai passed by and saw a few boys and girls practicing boxing. Although their arms were weak, their postures were decent. Yes, my Shiyun will also come over this weekend. Chen Guoqiang laughed. Why? Old Lan, do you want your daughter to come and learn? Well, Lan Xian doesn't like to exercise. Her body is almost as big as mine. This won't do. I have to let her exercise too. Lan Hao Kai was a little tempted, but he turned to look at Yang Yi. He smiled and said, Brother Yang, you should also bring your Shi over. It will be more lively if a few girls play together. Yang Yi rolled his eyes and said angrily, You dragged me into this. Don't even think about my daughter. I don't want her to learn boxing. Why should a girl learn boxing? You can't say that. Many parents want their children to learn boxing not because they want them to become violent, but because they want them to strengthen their physique and learn a skill to protect themselves, especially girls. Chen Guoqiang quickly explained. I'm not asking Shi to really practice boxing. I'm just asking her to come and play. Just treat boxing as a game. Anyway, they like to play together. What's the point of staying at home on the weekend? Lan Hao Kai persuaded Yang Yi. If it's just for fun, it doesn't matter if she comes a few times. Yang Yi hesitated and said, But I can't guarantee that she will come every week. Sometimes she has to stay at home with her mother. That's natural. It depends on the child's wishes. Let me tell you, if you get a membership for Xin Air, I'm not sure how many times she can come and how many days she can stay popular. Lan Hao Kai said with a smile. Then get another membership for Shi. Money was no longer important to them. What's more, Lan Hao Kai rushed to pay for Yang Yi's portion of the money. Chapter 429. This week, Yang Yi and she could not go to the fitness center to play boxing with Lan Hao Kai and Lan Xian. Although she was in high spirits after hearing the news, because Murphy's concert in Shanghai was going to start this Saturday, Yang Yi and she had to go to Shanghai to support Murphy's concert. Because of this, Yang Yi also asked for 2 days' leave for Shi. On Thursday, he set off with Murphy. This guy was very bold. He directly drove Murphy to the hotel where she was staying, and he and she booked a room on the other floor of the hotel. This is called darkness under the light. The more the entertainment reporters are guarding the place, the safer it is. Later, I'll swagger out of the hotel with Shi. I'm sure no one will pay attention to us two ordinary people. Yang Yi raised his eyebrows and said proudly to Murphy, who had settled down in her room with Mo Xiaowan and then secretly came to visit. Shi, look, your father is bragging. The bull is about to explode from his bragging. Murphy couldn't help but laugh and pull her daughter along. She believed it. She turned her head in confusion, looked around, and said in confusion, "Where is the bull?" This was really not bragging. Yang Yi was sure. In the afternoon, Yang Yi took Shi out to play. They walked out of the hotel with a few reporters holding cameras. However, when they looked up at Yang Yi and found that they didn't know him, they continued to play with their phones and ignored them. "Papa, why don't we take Mom to play with us?" She was in her father's arms. She looked around curiously and whispered in her father's ear. Yang Yi walked past a reporter with a normal expression and said calmly, "Because Mom has to work in the afternoon. We're here to accompany Mom, not to disturb her work, right?" She nodded sensibly. Yang Yi drove the car and shuttled through the streets of Shanghai with Cici. However, he wasn't driving around aimlessly. Before Yang Yi came, he had inquired about it from some netizens on a travel forum. The place he was going to take Cici to today was a very famous old street, Yuyuan Road. When they arrived, after Yang Yi parked the car, he held Shishi's hand and pointed to a blue road sign with a white border. Yuyuan Road? Shishi first looked around curiously, then she raised her little head and looked in the direction her father pointed. She repeated after him, but her pronunciation was not correct. "It's Yuyuan Road, you." Yang Yi corrected his daughter's pronunciation with a smile. "Okay." She wasn't interested in this. She found a new world by herself. The little girl jumped and pulled her father's hand. She happily raised her head and said, "Papa, let's go there and take a look." "It's so strange." "What's so strange?" It turned out that what attracted Shi's attention was a few old buildings. They were connected together like the walls of Tiananmen Square. However, they weren't as grand and seemed to have shrunk. Instead, a series of 7 arched teak doors were very eye-catching. Above them was a palace-like building. The yellow glazed roof tiles were like gold, plating these buildings with a layer of brilliant golden light. The heavy eaves, cornices, and arches all marked the rich history of these buildings. However, it wasn't a palace. "This is Jing, and temple." Yang Yi smiled and said to his daughter, "Do you know what a temple means?" "What does it mean?" She opened her arms and asked her father to pick her up. The little girl was short. Blocked by the cars on the road, she couldn't see anything. Yang Yi picked up Shi and said softly, "Do you remember the story of Journey to the West that Papa told you? Tang Sanzang came back from the West to bring back the scriptures so that Buddhism could have a better development in the Central Plains. Temples are where monks like Tang Sanzang live." "Then, is there a Tang Sanzang here?" Shi's face showed a surprised expression. "No, there's no Tang Sanzang in Shanghai. They're in the north." Yang Yi said. "There's no Tang Sanzang?" She was a little disappointed. Because there was no Tang Sanzang, Shi's expectations for Jing and temple dropped a lot. Moreover, when she went in with her father to take a look, the deep courtyard and quiet and ethereal temple were not the type that Shi liked. The little girl urged her father to leave after a while. It didn't matter. There were many beautiful scenic spots on Yuyuan Road for the father and daughter to see. What was interesting was that these scenic spots could only be found after turning into different alleys. In this deep and narrow alley, there were rows of newly sprouted sycamore trees along the way. That was not a bad scenery in itself. Without the noisy traffic, she was willing to get down and walk. Yang Yi looked at the innocent little girl and couldn't help but take a few photos of her with his SLR camera. You stand next to this tree. Yes, smile. Yang Yi instructed. From time to time, he pressed the shutter and took a few photos of Shi's cute moments. Hee hee. The little girl's smile was like a flower. She leaned against a brown, slanted brick-patterned doorpost, her hand holding the trunk of a white, mottled French parasol tree. The green shrubs in the garden next to her poked their heads out and served as the background for the little girl. Papa, make the photos and put them in my big one. She forgot how to say, photo album, and could only try her best to gesture. Of course. Yang Yi smiled and nodded at her. She didn't need to look at them anymore. She turned her head with satisfaction and walked forward. Papa, look, this building is also strange. Not long after, the little girl seemed to have found another amazing building. She happily turned around and ran back to her father, holding his hand and saying, what she found was also one of the scenic spots that Yang Yi planned to visit. It was the former residence of a famous person. Of course, Yang Yi wasn't familiar with this famous person, but his former residence was very luxurious. It was an Italian Gothic castle building. That was what the book said, but Yang Yi didn't know how to classify it. He just admired it. She also admired it. The little girl was happy to share her discovery with her father. Papa, look at that. Well, what's wrong with that roof? Yang Yi squatted down and looked in the direction of his daughter's finger. The gray outer wall was inlaid with red bricks in the middle and the blue four-sloped roof. In the simple and elegant style, there was a clear sense of vitality. There are two of them here. This thing, a small house, just like my building blocks. The little girl described seriously as she drew with her fingers. Yang Yi understood that she was talking about the two dark blue tiger windows on the roof. It was an evolution of the skylight. It looked like the building blocks that she played with in kindergarten. It was very much like a miniature version of a house. You're very observant. Papa will give you a thumbs up. Yang Yi gave the little girl a thumbs up. Only then did Cici smile happily. Yuyuan Road was basically an old building, but not all of them were famous people's former residences or scenic spots. There were many small shops with a literary atmosphere on this street. Most of them were coffee shops and tea shops. Yang Yi visited a few and it was an eye-opener. Looking at the decorations of other coffee shops, Yang Yi suddenly felt that his own coffee shop, which had been open for more than half a year, didn't seem to have made much progress. Compared to others, the artistic atmosphere was much less. Maybe there should be some changes, Yang Yi thought to himself. In the evening, before the sun had set, Shi, who had been shopping for the whole afternoon, was hungry. Yang Yi took her to eat strawberry Napoleon at a restaurant called Mr. Nice on Yuyuan Road. It was also a place that was highly recommended by a foodie netizen. The Napoleon cake mentioned here was actually a misunderstanding in translation. The essence of this cake was the 1,000-layer pastry. However, compared to the 1,000-layer pastry, it was more advanced. The pastry maintained a crisp texture, and the interlayer of the pastry was richer in ingredients, such as fresh cream and cheese sauce. Of course, it was strawberry Napoleon. The interlayer naturally couldn't be lacking in bright and attractive strawberry slices. Yang Yi had eaten this kind of cake before. He had also studied how to make it, but his craftsmanship was still a little lacking. There was nothing else, but this pastry, after being coated with fresh cream and cheese sauce, Yang Yi couldn't guarantee its crispness. Unless it was eaten immediately after being coated, it would soften after a few minutes. However, this craftsmanship was the secret of other chefs. Yang Yi had studied it for a long time, but he couldn't find the trick. In his previous life, he didn't have time to catch a chef and interrogate him. In this life, he didn't have the chance either. He could only try other people's craftsmanship when he met them. What made Yang Yi feel a little regretful was that the strawberry Napoleon in this shop didn't reach the extreme crispness that he used to eat in Europe. However, for Shi, it was enough. The crisp pastry, fragrant and soft cream, and fresh strawberries were sour and sweet. They all suited Shi's taste very well. It's delicious. The little girl ate a mouthful of cream. She burped and then smiled foolishly at her father. Yang Yi wiped his daughter's mouth in amusement. He said softly, "Just now, Dad sent Mom a text message. She didn't have time to eat dinner. She's still busy. Should we pack some cake for her?" Yes, Mom can eat it too. I like it very much." She clapped her little hands and said happily. "You like it very much, so Mom will like it too, right?" Yang Yi asked with a smile. "But only the cake isn't nutritious enough. Let's buy something delicious for Mom." Chapter 430. Murphy was indeed very busy. She was at the concert in Shanghai, checking out the lighting, elevators, and other facilities with the company's person in charge until 8 o'clock in the evening. "Sister, do you want to have dinner first?" Mo Xiaowan sat in the company's rented minivan and looked at Murphy worriedly. In the evening, Mo Xiaowan took the time to buy coffee and snacks, but Murphy only ate an egg tart to fill her stomach. Then she continued to audition with the band and did not eat anything. Not to mention Murphy, Missouri Xiaowan finished the rest of the snacks. She did not expect to spend so much time on the first day of the concert, but now Mo Xiaowan felt a little hungry. Murphy looked at the driver and shook her head gently. She said to Mo Xiaowan, "Let's go back to the hotel and talk." Mo Xiaowan understood. She smiled and said, "Then I'll go back to the hotel and find a place to eat. Then I'll go back at night." "Why do you have to go alone?" Murphy said reproachfully. She lowered her voice and whispered in Mo Xiaowan's ear, "Yang Yi also bought your share." Mo Xiaowan hugged Murphy's hand and smiled mischievously. She also whispered in Murphy's ear, "I'm creating space for you." Mo Xiaowan worried too much. Not to mention that she was not asleep yet. Even if she was asleep, Yang Yi would not torture Murphy at this time. After all, there was a concert the day after tomorrow. What if she lost her voice? There were a few reporters waiting outside the hotel. When they saw Murphy coming back, they swarmed over. "There are rumors on the internet that you and Mu Xiang are a couple. Murphy, what's your response to this?" "Murphy, about the concert the day after tomorrow." The microphones were shoved in their direction. Luckily, Mo Xiaowan was adept at handling the situation. She and the chauffeur raised their hands and protected Murphy in the middle until they squeezed into the hotel. The security guards stopped the reporters and they finally had some peace and quiet. Of course, along the way, Murphy and Mo Xiaowan remained silent. The walls had ears. Who knew if someone was monitoring the movements in the elevator? Murphy and Mo Xiaowan returned to their room first. But, as soon as they opened the door, Murphy saw the bright lights and the sound of the television. "Have they come here on their own?" Murphy hurriedly called Mo Xiaowan in and then closed the door in fear of being discovered. Just as Murphy turned around, Yang Yi came out of the hotel room and smiled at them. "You're back so late? Have you had dinner?" "Mom." A sweet voice was heard. Murphy then saw she's little head poking out from the wall. The little girl was clinging to the side of the bed, trying to stretch her head out to look at her mother. "Mom, I'm watching TV." She cried out happily and then retracted her head. The position she was in just now was a little uncomfortable. Moreover, the little girl was still thinking about the cartoon on the television. She couldn't wait to turn her head back to watch it. At this moment, Mo Xiaowan pushed the lock on the door to prevent anyone from outside. She then said with a smile, "Brother-in-law, my sister has been busy until now. She didn't even have time to eat. And, when she heard that you brought her delicious food, she rushed back in a hurry. Xiaowan didn't have dinner either." Yes, I'm starving. Brother-in-law, what delicious food did you bring?" Mo Xiaowan excitedly came over. When Yang Yi heard that Murphy didn't have dinner, he hurriedly opened the thermos bag and said, "They're all local dishes from Shanghai. Hujiang pork ribs, Shanghai vegetarian duck, tofu wrapped pork, and a bowl of mushroom rice soup. There were other delicious dishes, like soup dumplings, but they might not taste so good if I brought them back. So, I thought that if you don't go to the rehearsal so early tomorrow, we'll go eat the local breakfast in Shanghai together. What's in the bag over here? Mo Xiaowan curiously pointed to the bag next to her. It didn't use a thermos bag, but it was obvious that it used a packing box. Oh, these are desserts. You can eat them after dinner. There's strawberry Napoleon and walnut pie, Yang Yi said with a smile. When she heard this, although she was still watching the TV, she couldn't help but say, "Mom, strawberry Napoleon is delicious. It's super delicious." The little girl was watching TV and recommending food to her mother at the same time. She seemed to be having a hard time. Yang Yi smiled and said to Murphy, "She likes to eat this very much." She ate the whole 1,000-layer pastry in one go. In the end, she couldn't eat any other delicious food. Actually, the walnut pie is not bad. It's full of walnuts, but she didn't have the fortune to enjoy it. Murphy looked at Yang Yi with a sad face and said sadly, "You brought me so much food and such a high-calorie cake to tempt me. What if I become fat after eating it?" Recently, Murphy had been worried about this problem. She usually had a good figure, and she was also the legendary person who didn't get fat, so she rarely went on the scale. But last week, because she had nothing to do at home, she bought an electronic scale from the Sahara online shopping mall. In the end, she found that after being with Yang Yi, she had gained a total of 6 pounds. 107 pounds was the result of her company's physical examination before she came back. Now, she was already 113 pounds. Murphy panicked. She complained that Yang Yi made delicious food for her all day long, and pestered Yang Yi to take her to exercise in the morning to lose weight. "What's there to be afraid of? Even if you become a fat girl, I'll still take care of you." Yang Yi smiled and said to her. No, I don't want to become a fat girl," Murphy cried. Mo Xiaowan had already used her teeth and right hand to tear open a pair of disposable chopsticks. She flipped through the thermal bag with her left hand and shouted, "Hey, Mrs. Murphy, are you still showing off your love? If you ignore me, I'll finish your dinner." In any case, Mo Fei had already made up her mind not to eat desserts tonight, but Mo Xiaowan proudly took over the task. She was not afraid of getting fat, and she often followed Mo Fei around, so there was no need for her to worry about losing weight. They ate while chatting with Yang Yi. Mo Xiaowan stuffed her mouth with food and asked, "Brother-in-law, are you planning to debut with my sister after her contract with Tianmei ends and she goes to the studio?" Murphy's eyes lit up and she looked at Yang Yi. Although Murphy knew Yang Yi's character, she still had a little hope. She also wanted Yang Yi to support each other in the entertainment industry and really open a husband and wife shop. However, Yang Yi shook his head and said, "No, I'll just write songs for Murphy behind the scenes." "That's a pity." Mo Xiaowan cried, "Brother-in-law, you sing very well. Moreover, those songs you sang for my sister, such as Want to Sing Me to You, and Just Happen to Meet You, if you don't release them, it'll be a waste." Yang Yi frowned slightly. Mo Xiaowan was right. Those songs carried so many beautiful memories between him and Murphy. If he didn't sing them himself, he wouldn't be willing to let other singers sing them. "Actually, I also hope that you can sing with me. But it's okay, you have your own choice." "I can understand." Murphy reached out and shook Yang Yi's hand. Yang Yi's thoughts were still a little chaotic. Recently, there were many people who urged him to appear in public. Du Yuanlei, those readers, the editors of Sahara Publishing House, Mo Xiaowan, and Lanzhao Kai. He really didn't want to live a life of being the center of attention. Perhaps it was because of some psychological effects from his previous life, but to be honest, his current life was slowly changing some of his original views. Moreover, as Lanzhao Kai said, he wanted to keep a low profile. But with such a wife, was it possible to keep a low profile? Moreover, Lanzhao Kai was right about one thing. Humans were social animals. In this society, he could never be isolated from the eyes of others. Unless he abandoned his wife and children and lived alone in the mountains. Of course, that was impossible. However, Murphy's words still made Yang Yi's heart feel warm. He gently squeezed Murphy's hand and smiled, saying, "Let me think about it. It's still early, there's no rush." However, plans could never keep up with changes. Chapter 431. Early in the morning, Yang Yi's cell phone suddenly rang. At this time, Yang Yi was combing the hair of Cece, who had just woken up and whose hair was fluffy. This ringtone was like a soul-stirring, suddenly ringing and annoying. "Papa, is that Mama?" The little girl, who was still very sleepy, was stunned for a moment as if she had been startled awake. She turned her head and asked her father in a daze. Yang Yi walked over and picked up the phone. He saw that it was Fu Jun from Yongcheng. "What's going on? Why are you calling so early?" Yang Yi frowned. He thought that something had happened at the Sahara Online Mall. He made a sure gesture to Shi, motioning her not to speak. Then, he picked up the phone. "Brother Fu, what happened?" Yang Yi asked with a smile. However, Fu Jun called Yang Yi in a hurry early in the morning, not because of the Sahara Online Mall. "Brother Yang, did you know that photos of you, your wife, and your child have been exposed?" Fu Jun's voice came from the phone, but Yang Yi was confused. "What's going on?" It turned out that Fu Jun had come to the company early in the morning. His secretary, who liked to gossip, had rushed over with an entertainment tabloid and told Fu Jun that Yang Yi had been exposed. "The newspaper took a photo of you coming out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The child's appearance was clearly seen. Then, your car was also photographed. Your name was found out." After all, Fu Jun lived in Guangdong Province. He was close to a city with a strong entertainment atmosphere and paparazzi gossip. So, he was somewhat influenced. So, when Fu Jun found out, he immediately called Yang Yi to inform him. "In a while, I will take a photo of this newspaper and send it to you. Hurry up and prepare to deal with it." Yang Yi's face had already darkened at this moment. He clenched his right fist so hard that the veins on it bulged. However, he did not immediately show it. Instead, he patiently waited for Fu Jun's message. Shi, who was next to him, seemed to feel the change in her father's aura. She pouted and said with a little grievance, "Papa, aren't you going to comb my hair?" Yang Yi turned his head and looked at the adorable girl. Most of the hostility in his heart disappeared. He calmed his mind and smiled. "Who said so? Daddy will comb your hair for you now." When Yang Yi was combing Shi's hair, Fu Jun sent a message. But he was very calm. Yang Yi ignored it. After he finished combing Shi's hair, he went to get his phone. "I don't like this voice. It's not Mama calling." Shi jumped out of her father's arms. She went to get a small puppet souvenir that she bought yesterday and played with it as she spoke. Yang Yi did not have time to deal with his daughter. He opened Fu Jun's message and saw several photos of entertainment tabloids. The words and pictures were real. Although they were not very clear, Yang Yi still recognized the pictures at a glance. Wasn't it exactly the same as the contents of the USB flash drive hidden in his study? Yang Yi glanced at his daughter. He got up and went to the bathroom. He closed the door and dialed Zhu Jie's number. It was so early in the morning. Zhu Jie was probably not awake yet. Yang Yi bombarded him for several minutes and called him 3 times before Zhu Jie picked up. Zhu Jie's sleepy voice came through. "Hello, Boss Mu Xiang, why are you calling me so early?" "Zhu Jie, are you King kidding me?" Yang Yi gritted his teeth and said angrily. His voice was almost squeezed out of his teeth. Ah. Zhu Jie was confused. 15 minutes later, after figuring out why Yang Yi was scolding him, Zhu Jie said in a panic, "Boss Mu Xiang, it has nothing to do with me. I already gave you the USB flash drive. Also, my aunt promised to get along well with Sister Murphy. How could she leak the photos to the media? If it has nothing to do with you, does it have anything to do with me?" Yang Yi was not angry that his relationship with Murphy was exposed by the media. He was angry that Shi's face was also published by the media. In this world, there was no such thing as underage girls not being able to report. At the same time, Yang Yi was angry that Zhu Jie had tricked him. He had gone back on his word. He had said that the matter had been resolved, but in the end, the photos were already exposed by the media. Yang Yi really wanted to kill someone. No, Zhu Jie's brain was not enough at the moment. Zhu Jie, if you don't give me a satisfactory answer, don't blame me for being rude to you. Yang Yi was not threatening him. He was really angry and did not reject using some of his methods. Don't, boss, don't be anxious. Let me think about it. My aunt would not leak the photos. My dad has already told her. Zhu Jie was anxious. He was really afraid of Yang Yi, a man who did not follow the law. If it is not her, if it is not you, who else could it be? Yang Yi punched the wall of the bathroom. Jian Chua, Manager Jian, my aunt gave her the USB flash drive. Could it be that she leaked the photos secretly? Zhu Jie suddenly had an idea. You are asking me? No, I'm saying it's possible. How about this, Boss Muzi Ong, don't worry, I'll immediately ask my aunt about this matter and let her investigate it for you. Zhu Jie said solemnly. Yang Yi was silent for a while. Then he said slowly, I will wait for your answer. Don't let me down again. He did not care about Zhu Jie's promise and hung up the phone impatiently. After hanging up the phone, Yang Yi's eyes flashed. He could not trust Zhu Jie now. However, he was in Shanghai now, so he could not take any measures. Papa, are you pooping? I am scared. The little girl's timid voice came from outside the bathroom. She saw that her father had stayed in the bathroom for a long time, and she could not sit still. Yang Yi calmed down a little. He washed his face and came out of the bathroom. He said with a smile, What's wrong? Are you afraid that Papa fell into the toilet and can't get out? She stretched out her little hands and wanted her father to hug her. In her father's arms, she muttered, I am scared. Papa is gone, and only she is left. Hugging the pure and soft little girl, Yang Yi felt that there was still some beauty in the world. His heart, which was originally covered with dark clouds, finally saw a ray of sunshine. This entertainment tabloid was not only published in Guangdong province, but the sudden big news was also discovered by the people of Tianmei. They did not know that there was a problem with the source of the photos. However, Murphy suddenly suffered a reputation crisis, and the entertainment tabloid even used the title, The Queen of Jade Girl is a Married Young Woman, Murphy's Husband and Child Exposed. The Queen of Jade Girl was a title that Murphy was given by the media 6 years ago. How could the Public Relations Department not pay attention to it? They asked Murphy whether it was true or not while anxiously preparing for the public relations matters. Therefore, when Yang Yi called Zhu Jie, Mo Shaowan and Murphy also received the news from the company. This morning, Yang Yi was going to take Shi, Murphy, and Mo Shaowan to taste the specialty breakfast of Shanghai, but now it seemed that it was impossible. The media reporters must have received the news earlier than them. Now, the hotel entrance must be surrounded by reporters. Not to mention Murphy, even Yang Yi would not be able to get away. What should we do? When they arrived at Murphy's room, Murphy somewhat panicked and asked Yang Yi for help. The sudden exposure of their relationship completely disrupted Mo Fei's plan. And she had never been a quick-witted person. Chapter 432. What should I do? Yang Yi hadn't thought about this yet. He didn't care much about their relationship being exposed. Now, he was more concerned about who had leaked the photo to the tabloid. This uncontrollable feeling made Yang Yi feel uncomfortable all over. It was very uncomfortable. Therefore, Yang Yi just comforted Murphy and said to her, Don't worry. Anyway, didn't you already plan to make our relationship public? Just take this as an opportunity. We can openly admit it. Murphy said sadly, Yes, I wanted to make it public, but now that it's been exposed, it doesn't give us any time to react. And why is the person who reported this so hateful? He even exposed Shi's photo. Cici, who was beside him, heard her name and turned her head in confusion. She couldn't go out to play, so the little girl was in a bad mood. Fortunately, there was a TV in the hotel, so she could watch cartoons. However, she realized that her parents didn't pay attention to her, as if they had never mentioned her name. However, she still believed her ears. She crawled over on the bed and pulled her mom's clothes, calling out crisply, "Mom, I'm here." Murphy was stunned for a moment. She turned her head and forced a smile at the little girl. "It's okay. Mom isn't talking to you. You can continue watching TV." She hugged she lovingly in her arms and gently rubbed Shi's little head. She sighed in her heart. "In the future, you may not live as freely as you do now." Murphy didn't want her daughter to grow up under the spotlight. She didn't want the reporters to chase after her daughter like a celebrity. Because in that way, the little girl's strengths and weaknesses would be infinitely magnified. She was worried that she wouldn't be able to grow up happily. This was also why Murphy was hesitant to disclose her relationship and family situation. She was not worried that she would lose fans if she went public. She had never regarded herself as an idol singer. Moreover, after she and Yang Yi fell in love and got married, she was so happy that she wanted to announce it to the world. It was just that she made her worry. At this moment, Yang Yi's mind was still spinning. He didn't have time to think about how to solve the problem. Instead, he was thinking about how this problem could have happened. He thought of many possibilities. The first possibility was that Zhu Jie had gone back on his words. He had said one thing on the surface and another behind his back to gain his trust. Then, he had leaked the photos to the reporters. Of course, this possibility was very low. Judging from Zhu Jie's reaction, Yang Yi felt that he shouldn't be lying. However, Yang Yi didn't believe his own judgment. He wanted evidence. The second possibility was that Niu Meiling was too hypocritical. She promised Zhu Jie in front of everyone, but then sent the photos to the reporters. Yang Yi felt that this possibility was very high. Wasn't Niu Meiling always like this? However, there was a third possibility and a fourth possibility. The third possibility was that Jian Chua had sold the photos to the reporters behind their backs. The fourth possibility, although Zhu Jie hadn't thought of it, Yang Yi thought of it. It could be that the paparazzi hunter Zhu Jie had mentioned, Teacher Ko, had sold the photos to two people. Yang Yi hadn't paid much attention to the paparazzi hunter situation before because he felt that these people were just fleas that could be trampled to death. But now, it seemed that he was wrong. A small flea could overturn an elephant. These people were like Zhuo Wei. In his previous life, they had caused a lot of trouble for celebrities. It wasn't without reason. Yang Yi felt that he had to pay more attention to them. However, he had to take one bite at a time. Problems had to be solved one by one. Just as Yang Yi was deep in thought, Mo Xiaowan, who was looking at her computer, shouted, "Sis, your fans are arguing." Yang Yi and Murphy went over and saw the micro-broadcast that Mo Xiaowan had posted yesterday. Although it was only a photo of Murphy at the concert, the comments under the latest micro-broadcast were explosive. From the top few comments, Yang Yi and Murphy saw that this news wasn't only reported by the entertainment tabloids. Some web portals reacted quickly and obtained authorization to repost this news online. This time, the news had spread like wildfire. And in the comments, the reactions of the fans were different. Some expressed their surprise and couldn't believe the authenticity of this news. "Murphy is married? What's going on? Isn't this news too sudden? It's not just marriage. Look at how old her child is. It doesn't make sense. How can she only get married when her child is so old? And why did it only come out now? What do the paparazzi do for a living? Could it be photoshopped? Asking for a technical evaluation." There were really people who analyzed it in a weird manner. The photo is a photocopy of the newspaper after it was published. I can't tell if it's photoshopped or not. But looking at the timeline, the possibility of Murphy having a child is very high. A few years ago, when Murphy retired, some newspapers speculated that she might have gone abroad to get married and have a child. Murphy retired 6 years ago, got pregnant and gave birth. The child should be about 4 or 5 years old by now. The child in the photo looks about 5 or 6 years old. But maybe the child of a celebrity is well nourished and is tall, so they are about the same age. So this news might be true. Then the question is, Who is this Yang E in the photo? Did he and Murphy just get married? If so, then what is his relationship with this child? Could he be her stepfather? Murphy doesn't look like a good woman either. She even said she was a virgin. It's also possible that Murphy married into a rich family and became the stepmother of someone else's daughter. Look at that little girl. She's even being carried by that man. That's not very likely, right? And that man doesn't look like he's rich. I've checked the car in the photo. Tyrannical wolf. About 600,000. It can't even be considered a luxury car. There were many people who were making malicious speculations and wanted to step on them. The emotions of the fans were stirred up. Other than the previous comments, there were even more comments that did not approve of the marriage between Yang E and Murphy. They could not accept it. Murphy is my goddess. Why did she suddenly get married? It's not just marriage. Her child is already so big. I feel like I'm going to collapse. I don't like this man. He's not good looking. He's not compatible with Murphy. Even more, the fans who supported Murphy and Mu Ziyang in the past were now exploding. They exploded on the spot. Some even hurled insults at them. Who the hell is Yang E? Didn't they agree that Murphy would be with Mu Ziyang? Where did this guy pop out from? Sob sob, it's not happy. I don't like Murphy marrying a passerby. What Yang E? I've never heard of him. Could it be that Murphy looks down on Mu Ziyang? But this man isn't handsome either. What's the use of being tall? Can he be eaten? Mu Ziyang is overflowing with talent. You didn't choose him but this man. Are you blind? That blissful look on the variety show was just an act, right? How disgusting. To think that I was hoping that Murphy and Mu Ziyang would fall in love because of the song. Isn't the entertainment industry full of such trivial matters? They didn't deny it or admit it. It's obviously a publicity stunt to trick fools like you into believing it. They even said that Murphy and Mu Ziyang were a couple. Are you dumbfounded now? Do you think it's possible that Murphy cheated Mu Ziyang's feelings? She cheated him of 12 songs and then actually had a child and got married? That Mu Ziyang is too pitiful. I've decided that from now on, I'll only support Mu Ziyang if he's out of Murphy's trap. These comments made Murphy very uncomfortable. It was almost the opposite of the previous situation. This time, it was a one-sided criticism and opposition. There were also the blessings that Murphy wanted to see, but there weren't many of them. No matter who Murphy marries, as long as she's happy, that's good enough. Whether it's Mu Ziyang or Yang E, we just like Murphy's songs. If she can continue to sing well, we won't mind. She's married. She must be happy. And she already has such a big baby. Sister Murphy is a winner in life. These scattered blessings were drowned in endless cynicism and ridicule. No matter who Murphy marries, she's married to a nobody. If Mu Ziyang is annoyed, let's see if Mu Ziyang will still write songs for him in the future. We're not talking about who Murphy marries. We're questioning whether Murphy played with Mu Ziyang's feelings. If he can write 12 songs for Murphy, I think Mu Ziyang is an infatuated man. Mo Xiaowan looked at Murphy holding the mouse and dragging the page. She quickly comforted her. Actually, it's okay. They don't know that brother-in-law is Mu Ziyang. However, Yang Yi couldn't stand it anymore. He said unhappily, "Isn't this too exaggerated? Are these people Mu Ziyang's fans or Murphy's fans? If I'm not Mu Ziyang, will they break us up?" Mo Xiaowan laughed and said, "Brother-in-law, don't be so stubborn. Look at it from a different perspective. They've been keeping their appetites high enough. Later, when we decide how to admit and make it public, you suddenly tell them that Yang E is Mu Ziyang and Mu Ziyang is Yang E. With such a sudden reversal, they'll be speechless and dumbfounded. Isn't that more interesting?" Chapter 433. Sometimes, Yang E was indeed a little stubborn. His main body was suppressed by his own alternate account. Although it was the same logic as a left hand against a right hand, Yang Yi was still a little unhappy. After all, his main body had created many classic works. For example, Soldier's Assault and Drawing Sword, two physical bestsellers, both made it into the top 10 in the year-end sales rankings last year. For example, Yu Zue and Prison Break, these two serialized web novels, were still firmly standing on the top of the list. Among them, Prison Break was the undisputed number one. There were also Shi's bedtime stories, Journey in the White Night, and so on. The screenwriter of the recent popular micro-movie, Fairy Tale, had also signed his main body's name. How did he end up as a nobody in these people's mouths? Indeed, his main body rarely appeared in public and had only participated in one military event. However, Mu Xiang had never shown his face either, had he? For some reason, Yang Yi suddenly remembered what the old man Chen Fengchen said when he persuaded him to participate in the press conference for Soldier's Assault. As the saying goes, one must become famous early. Little Yang, don't you young people have this awareness? This is no longer the era where good wine is not afraid of deep alleys. The more you resist contact with the public, the more the public will resist to understand you and your works. In the end, no matter how good the work is, it will lose its brilliance. Although Chen Fengchen's purpose in saying this was to create more gimmicks for the movie, Yang Yi only realized that the old man's words had come true when he thought about it. He had concealed his identity, resulting in him becoming a nobody. No, Yang Yi was a little unwilling. I've decided. Yang Yi had been secretly pondering when Murphy suddenly spoke up. What have you decided? Mo Xiaowan asked curiously. Now that it has been exposed by the media, and there are so many misunderstandings, I've decided to make it completely public. At tomorrow's concert, I'll tell them the truth personally, Murphy said. Yang Yi was stunned for a moment. He did not expect Murphy to suddenly become so decisive. Just now, after she knew that she had been exposed, she still looked like she was out of her wits. Could it be that she was provoked by those fans' comments? I thought you wanted to announce it directly on micro-broadcasting. Mo Xiaowan giggled. Micro-broadcasting will also announce it after the concert. Murphy nodded. After all, it was still a new concept. Currently, no one had fully grasped the correct way to use micro-broadcasting as a channel to disseminate information. Most of the time, it was still through the channels of reporters, media, or directly holding press conferences. For Mo Xiaowan to think of using micro-broadcasting, she had vaguely grasped the essence of it. Murphy bit her lower lip, looked at Yang Yi, and said with some difficulty, Yang Yi, can you accompany me on the concert stage tomorrow? I want to use this opportunity to introduce you to everyone. I want to tell everyone that you're Mu Xiang. I won't allow them to say such things to you. You're the best. Murphy was a little nervous. She knew that Yang Yi did not like to appear in public. Furthermore, last night, he had said that he did not want to debut. Would he be willing to go on stage with her? However, Murphy's words warmed Yang Yi's heart. Not only did he not refuse, he even looked into Murphy's beautiful eyes and said gently, "Of course. How could I let you face it alone?" However, since Murphy wanted to make an official announcement tomorrow night, Yang Yi began to ponder in his heart. There were still close to 2 days left. Yang Yi felt that he could take advantage of this time to create a wave of trouble. Mo Xiaowan, who had a stomach full of dog food, rolled her eyes. Actually, in the past, Mo Xiaowan was like those fans. No matter how she looked at Yang Yi, she did not like him. But now, as she got to know him better, in Mo Xiaojuan's eyes, Yang Yi and Murphy were like a golden couple when they were together. They were exceptionally compatible. Let these people know how short-sighted they are. Mo Xiaowan thought to herself. She smirked and said, "Sis, brother-in-law, I feel that instead of going on stage to talk, why don't you first sing a song together and then introduce yourselves? This way, it'll be more convincing, and it'll give them a bigger shock." Yang Yi and Murphy were stunned for a moment. They looked at each other. Murphy's eyes were filled with eagerness. She really wanted to sing with Yang Yi, but she was worried that Yang Yi would reject her. Like a little girl who was about to confess her love, she asked nervously, can we? Yang Yi smiled. I think we can. But, what song are we going to sing? Murphy said happily. It's not easy to choose a song that we can sing together. Come across the sea to see you? Or is it in my song? Yang Yi smiled and said, actually, among the songs that I sang for you before, there's one that's very suitable for a man and a woman to sing together. Really? Which one? Murphy asked happily. If it was a song that Yang Yi sang for her, Murphy had basically learned it from Yang Yi, which also reduced the trouble of learning. Mo Xiaowan looked at her watch and said, Hey, don't discuss it here. Why don't you go directly to the concert venue? This is a new show, we need to discuss it with the director and practice with the band. Why don't we rehearse together? After Murphy heard this, she looked at Yang Yi apologetically and said, I'm sorry, we might have to delay your travel plans today. But we want to show the audience a good show, so it's necessary to rehearse in advance. Also, you have to experience the stage in advance. Now, Murphy wouldn't doubt Yang Yi's singing skills. Now, Yang Yi's voice was even more demonic than hers, and under her guidance, his singing skills had improved a lot. But going on stage and singing in front of 40,000 people was different from singing at home. Not to mention Yang Yi, even Murphy was nervous when she held her first concert. At that time, she was no longer a rookie singer. I'll listen to your arrangements. Yang Yi smiled. But now, the problem was how to get out. The outside of the hotel was already surrounded by reporters and paparazzi. It was impossible for Yang Yi to walk out in front of the reporters like he did yesterday. They weren't blind. Now, Yang Yi's face was even more recognizable than that of a wanted criminal. But there was still a way. The reporters could block the entrance of the hotel, but they couldn't block the entrance and exit of the hotel's underground parking lot. An hour later, an inconspicuous black car slowly drove out of the hotel's underground parking lot exit. The paparazzi waiting nearby took a look and found that it was not Mo Fei's nanny van, and the driver in the driver's seat was also an ordinary man, so they lost interest and then looked at the other cars that drove out from behind. However, when the car drove out of an intersection, the blanket on the front passenger seat lifted by itself, revealing a man sitting up straight. If someone looked carefully, they would realize that it was Yang Yi, who was at the center of the storm. At this time, from the back seat, 3 heads popped out from behind the front seat cushion. One of them was a small head. Shishi's hair was a little messy, probably because she had been hidden in her mother's arms for a long time. But she was more curious, so she poked her head out and looked outside. Are you done? Murphy asked in a low voice. Yes. Yang Yi nodded. Shishi had been holding it in for a long time. Now, the little girl could finally speak. She pretended to gasp for breath, and then she couldn't act anymore. She giggled and said, Oh, I'm so bored. Papa, are we playing hide and seek? Sure. Murphy raised her index finger to Shishi. As long as she covered her mouth again, but her eyes were still smiling, she thought it was very funny. Yang Yi didn't have time to talk to Shishi. At the next intersection, after making sure that there were no cars following them, Yang Yi asked the driver to pull over. He and the driver got out of the car. He shook hands with the driver and gave him some money to keep it a secret. Then, Yang Yi sat in the driver's seat and drove Murphy and the others to the stadium where the concert was held. Chapter 434. Brother-in-law, where did you get the car? And who was that person just now? Mo Xiaowan asked curiously. Yang Yi smiled slightly and said, The car was rented. That person, of course, is also someone from the car rental company. I asked him for a small favor and spent some money. It turned out that Yang Yi had thought of a way to sneak out of the hotel and settle all of this. He had just escaped from the encirclement of reporters and paparazzi. This was a small scene. Yang Yi had seen bigger things before. However, Murphy and Mo Xiaowan were a little surprised. Even if they were in the entertainment industry, they were still ordinary people. Just now, they had passed under the eyes of the reporters. They felt nervous and excited. Can I speak now? She couldn't help but pull her mother's hand and ask in a low voice. Murphy forgot about this. She smiled and adjusted the zipper of her daughter's jacket and said, "Of course you can. Just now, there was an unfamiliar uncle around." While Yang Yi and the others were rehearsing at the concert, the entertainment tabloid that had fiercely attracted a lot of attention today actually struck while the iron was hot and released a supplement. This supplement was a newspaper. Combined together, it took up about 2 pages of the newspaper. There were also some random articles that no one read that took up 1 page, and the remaining page was filled with new revelations. However, such a disgusting supplement still managed to sell as many copies as the morning newspaper in the afternoon. There were really too many onlookers. If it was said that the morning's newspaper lacked some convincing evidence, some fans who were unwilling to give up thought that it might be a misunderstanding. For example, Yang Yi was Murphy's bodyguard, or Yang Yi was Murphy's brother. In that case, this afternoon's newspaper was an irrefutable truth. Murphy and Yang Yi's wedding photo. Although the resolution was a little blurry compared to the previous photos, it could still be seen clearly. In the wedding photo with a red background and white clothes, the two of them were smiling brightly. Murphy was even brimming with a happy smile that was rarely seen. This entertainment tabloid actually wanted to wait for Chienmei's people to finish their public relations before dropping this big bomb. But for the whole morning, Chienmei's people seemed to be indifferent. Even Mo Fei's microblog was almost flipped over, but there was no new status update. They were also worried that the person who sold them the information was not the only one, so they hurriedly spread it out and made a fortune first. However, they had no idea that Murphy was already prepared to be honest. Chienmei's PR department had also received Murphy's instructions and changed their original strategy of defending. Instead, they prepared a draft and sent it to a few familiar media outlets, asking them to publish it the day after Murphy's concert, which was the weekend. But now, Tianmei was in a mess. Niu Meiling was not in the mood to ask about how this matter was handled. Her eyes were red. She stared at Jian Chua, wanting to get to the bottom of this matter. Who was the one who leaked the photos to the media? Niu Meiling was very angry. She felt wronged. She really didn't do it. She was experienced. Ever since she found out that Murphy's partner was Mu Ziyang, she knew that even if she leaked the photos to the media and exposed Murphy's marriage, it would be difficult to cause any impact. Moreover, Mu Ziyang already knew about the existence of the information. If it was really leaked, she would be the #1 suspect. Why did she end up in a bad situation? But who knew that she would still be the scapegoat? Early in the morning, Niu Meiling was suspected by her nephew, Zhu Jie, and received a call from Zhu Jingwei. Niu Meiling felt that she was more wronged than Do Yi. "Wait, who is Do Yi?" "Sister Ling, it wasn't me. I've been with you for so many years. It's not like you don't know. You said not to expose it, so I returned the USB to you." Jian Chua felt wronged and said hurriedly, "That information, that USB, passed through 2 people. One was me, and the other was you. I didn't. If it wasn't you, then who else could it be?" Niu Meiling said. She suddenly turned her head and frowned at Zhu Jie, who was sitting next to her. Based on Niu Meiling's understanding of Jian Chua, it was impossible for her to do such a thing. Moreover, she couldn't see any flaws in her expression. "Why are you looking at me?" Zhu Jie asked, puzzled. "Although I also took the USB, Auntie, you don't think that I did it, right? If I wanted to leak it to the media, why would I spend so much effort to stop you? Moreover, I took the USB that morning and sent it directly to Mu Ziyang. It's impossible that I leaked it," Zhu Jie said. "I didn't either. I locked it in the drawer." Jian Chua quickly said, "Sister Ling, do you think that Teacher Ko was greedy for money, so he didn't keep his promise and sold it to 2 people?" Niu Meiling frowned deeply. If that was the case, it would be very difficult to investigate. Mu Yuqing rarely read gossip. His usual hobbies were reading books and comics. That's right, he was a typical otaku. However, today, he read a piece of gossip for the first time ever. This was because on Yang Yi's personal website, which had been established recently, he saw someone post that Yang Yi's marriage with a female celebrity had been exposed by the media. Although it was a normal account, Mu Yuqing, as an old fan, could tell that it was an official account of Sahara Publishing. It was these people who had pulled him in. Did this mean that it was true? Out of curiosity about what Yang Yi looked like, Mu Yuqing couldn't help but search online. The authorized gossip news could be seen on several portals, and Mu Yuqing also saw Yang Yi in person for the first time. He's quite tall. Mu Yuqing compared the reference objects around the first photo and couldn't help but click his tongue. He also looked strong, masculine, and handsome. Mu Yuqing's last comment was when he saw the new report and the wedding photo with the red background and white shirt. It wasn't that Mu Yuqing was gay. He just recalled some rumors in the book review section that Yang Yi was a retired Special Forces soldier. With such a comparison, the image of the man on the screen matched quite well. Mu Yuqing originally planned to retreat after a glance at this piece of gossip news. However, as he continued reading, he couldn't stop himself. It turns out that Master Yang Yi is so awesome. He actually flirted with a very popular celebrity. Mu Yuqing saw some of the introductions about Mo Fei and thought with delight. Mu Yuqing was Yang Yi's hardcore fan. Naturally, he was thinking for Yang Yi. Murphy was so beautiful and was a big celebrity. Mu Yuqing only felt that Yang Yi didn't lose out. He also secretly felt that the two of them were quite compatible. A talented man and a beautiful woman. Since ancient times, hadn't it always been about the talent of the man and the beauty of the woman? Although there were more additions in modern times, these 2 points couldn't be wrong. However, when Mu Yuqing saw some gossip columns commenting on Murphy's marriage, he felt that it was too degrading for Murphy to marry an ordinary person. It wasn't worth it. F***ck. Mu Yuqing felt like there were tens of thousands of alpacas galloping through his heart. He suddenly became unhappy. Is Yang Yi an ordinary person? Mu Yuqing couldn't take it anymore. He opened a book group and typed furiously, "Is Yang Yi an ordinary person?" Instantly, he received a lot of replies. He's not an ordinary person. If Boss is an ordinary person, then what are we? Haha, if Boss Yang is an ordinary person, then what are you? In terms of income, writing skills, and talent, no matter what, Boss is 100 times better than a rookie like you. How dare you say he's an ordinary person? You'll be scolded to death in minutes. Brother above, don't be angry. Old Mu is one of us. What's wrong with old Mu? Why did you say that all of a sudden? Mu Yuqing didn't care. He angrily forwarded the reports he saw today and said, "I'm curious. What makes these media so confident that Boss Yang Yi is an ordinary person? Yang Yi is as famous as Murphy, right?" His words were quickly drowned out by the exclamations. F***ck, is it really Boss Yang Yi? Yang Yi is so handsome. He's worthy of being a retired Special Forces soldier. He's not like other authors who are fat and stay at home. By the way, I saw this news this morning. At that time, I thought to myself, could it be someone with the same name? If it's really Boss Yang Yi, then it's really great. Murphy is my favorite female singer and Yang Yi is my favorite author. The two of them together, wow. However, at this time, the book group leader temporarily muted everyone and only unmuted Mu Yuqing. Old Mu, is this news reliable? Is it really Boss Yang Yi? It's definitely reliable. I heard it from an employee of Sahara Publishing. Look at this news. It's in Zhongqing. Zhongqing is the base of the Zhongnan Military District. Last year, didn't Boss Yang Yi go to the Zhongnan Military District for an event? At this time, the administrator of the group also contacted Sahara Publishing. He also received confirmation. The group leader made a conclusion. The problem now is that none of the news reports reported positively about Boss Yang Yi. Old Mu just said that those people still think that Boss Yang Yi is an ordinary person and not worthy of Murphy. If that's the case, we hardcore fans shouldn't sit back and do nothing. We should also take action and let those idiots see Boss Yang Yi's power. This appeal was echoed by almost everyone. There were relatively few people in this group, but everyone joined various groups. They spontaneously helped to promote and appeal, and even shouted in the comment section of Yang Yi's books. Gradually, a force that couldn't be ignored gathered. Chapter 435. Because of that incident, Yang Yi's personal website, which had been slowly brewing, suddenly received tens of thousands of visitors, and the number was still increasing. To clear Yang Yi's name, I'll leave a footprint first. Follow me. The post had been posted for less than 2 hours, but it had already received more than 20,000 comments. By the evening, it had reached 100,000 comments. Although there were repeated IDs, the scale was still astounding. Their power was also gradually reflected. By evening, the comment section of the several portals that reposted the gossip was basically dominated by Yang Yi's fans. Unlike the Water Army, they were all spontaneous. Most of the fans worked hard to introduce Yang Yi's achievements in the field of literature in their own words. The sincerity in their words was moving. Have you read the books written by Yang Yi? Soldier's Assault, Drawing Sword. Don't talk nonsense if you haven't read enough. I'm dead. How dare Yang Yi say that he's an ordinary person? He earns tens of millions a month. Do you even have 10,000? Hee, our Yang Yi is a low-key person, but you're calling him an ordinary person. I can't stand it anymore. Do you dare to tell me your address? I'll send you something. Of course, most of the fans were more civilized. There was no way they would not criticize Yang Yi. They patiently analyzed the situation of the two protagonists in the gossip. Murphy is a big star, but Yang Yi isn't bad either. How many best-selling books have he published? Soldier's Assault and Drawing Sword were both licensed to director Chan Fengchen, and it's said that we'll see the release of the TV series Soldier's Assault in the second half of the year. He's half a part of the entertainment industry, isn't he? Yang Yi isn't an ordinary person. The person who wrote this article should at least search for his name first, okay? The website shows that Yang Yi has tens of millions of fans. With such popularity, he shouldn't be any worse than Murphy, right? Not only that, but at around 7 p.m., someone shouted on Yang Yi's personal website. The army of people who wanted to clear Yang Yi's name went to Murphy's Weibo. Fortunately, the people who read novels were cultured people. They still remembered that Yang Yi and Murphy were a couple. Before the army set off, they made an appeal. Murphy is Yang Yi's wife. She's one of us, so we can't be as reckless as before. Try to persuade and educate her. In the beginning, everyone was very friendly. They politely introduced their username, Yang Yi, to Murphy's fans. However, Murphy's fans did not buy it. Although some of them were still rational, some of them were unhappy to see their territory being taken over by outsiders. So, they began to curse. Who cares who your Lord Yang Yi is? Is this a place where you can behave atrociously? I'm laughing. A small author dares to call himself a celebrity. Isn't he a toad that wants to eat swan meat? The literary circle and the entertainment circle are two different things. Don't cross the line. Let me give you a word of advice. D***man, who are you trying to scare with so few people? Tens of millions of fans? Why do I only see 300,000 comments? Most of them were posted during the day. Among these people, many of them were dissatisfied with the news of Murphy's marriage. They were a little hot-headed, so they became so uncultured. They also succeeded in angering some Yang Yi's fans. Gradually, the comment section fell into chaos. It even escalated to a war of words between the literary circle and the entertainment circle. There were still some people who were rational. For example, some of Murphy's fans calmed down and felt that if Yang Yi was really as good as these people said, then Murphy's marriage with him was not unacceptable. However, most of the fans were not rational. They originally supported the coupling of Murphy and Mu Ziyang. Now, they could not accept the marriage of Murphy and Yang Yi. Therefore, this situation that could not be communicated at all led to a vigorous argument. Yang Yi originally only wanted the people of Sahara Publishing to secretly announce his identity. He wanted to see how much the situation could be salvaged compared to the original account. However, the development after that was out of Yang Yi's control. It was not something he could have expected. When he came back in the evening, Yang Yi saw the comment section of the gossip news, and his fans were speaking up for him. He was very gratified, but when he saw the farce in the comment section of Mo Fei's micro-broadcast, he was a little speechless. Were these people's heads kicked by donkeys? Did it have to be Mu Ziyang, to meet their standards? Of course, Yang Yi did not continue to argue. It was fine to do something small. If he insisted on making things difficult for himself, then he was stupid. Moreover, Yang Yi was not free today. He was busy rehearsing with Murphy for the concert. In order not to make a fool of himself in tomorrow's performance, he also went all out and sang with Murphy several times. However, the good news was that Yang Yi and Murphy's tacit understanding was very high. The two only needed to look at each other to understand each other's meaning. Therefore, there was basically no problem with singing together. Murphy's only worry was whether Yang Yi would be nervous when facing tens of thousands of fans tomorrow. Murphy's mentality was very good. She did not pay attention to the outside world's disturbances and focused on preparing for tomorrow's concert. If I get it, it's my fortune. If I don't, it's my fate. In the evening, Murphy smiled and said to Mo Shaowan, who was telling her about the latest news from the entertainment tabloid in the afternoon, "The fans who really like my music will still stay. Some of the fake fans who are not very reliable will still leave. I'll take this opportunity to let them know that I'm just a singer, not an idol who needs to sacrifice my happiness for them." The next day, regarding Murphy's report, there was a lack of convincing evidence. The entertainment tabloid was no longer the only one who stood out, and the other media finally reacted. For example, the media that were monitoring the hotel gave a very important piece of news. Yang Yi's car was parked in the parking lot of the hotel where Murphy was staying. This tyrant and its license plate number were the key to the entertainment tabloid being able to dig out Yang Yi's name. In the entertainment tabloid's first piece of news, it took up a lot of space. Therefore, to be able to find the car in this hotel, the media that dug out this piece of news boldly guessed that Yang Yi was staying in this hotel. Teske, Murphy came to hold a concert and even had a secret meeting with her husband in a hotel. This gossip really made the onlookers happy. Yesterday, Yang Yi's fans made a lot of noise, so naturally, it attracted a lot of attention. Some media actively sought confirmation, and some media did not even bother to do so. The next day, they directly reported the identity of Murphy's marriage partner. However, this time, they were a little more polite. Some media even changed their tone and began to recognize the marriage between Yang Yi and Murphy. Although Yang Yi is a rising star in the literary circle, he has already sold the copyright of 2 of his works and is preparing to make them into a TV series. He will have a good position in the entertainment industry. Looking at it this way, Yang Yi and Murphy can be considered a match. The comparison between Yang Yi and Mu Ziyang is difficult to determine. After all, the two of them are in different fields. The only thing they have in common is that they are both creators. However, love has nothing to do with good or bad, and has nothing to do with wealth. As long as Murphy and Yang Yi are truly in love, I feel that I should still give my sincere blessings. However, no matter how the media and reporters pestered them, and how the outside world was in an uproar, Tianmei and Murphy did not give any response. Even the staff at Qianmei's headquarters kept their mouths shut. They did not reveal anything to the reporters who blocked the door. Time passed very quickly. As night fell, the Shanghai stadium was brightly lit. True fans who bought tickets to watch the concert lined up early to check their tickets and enter. Murphy's second concert was about to begin. Chapter 436. Chu Fongfong was an ordinary junior student at Shanghai University of Technology. She liked Murphy's songs very much, and she heard that Murphy's live performance was even more amazing, so she bought tickets early with her roommate Zhong Zhenjin. Although it was not a particularly good seat, for students, it was already very satisfying to be able to watch a concert. "Hey, I thought this concert was going to be over. I didn't expect there to be so many people." After Zhong Zhenjin sat down, she looked around and couldn't help but whisper to Chu Fongfong. "How could it be over?" Chu Fongfong laughed. Just because of yesterday's gossip? The news of Murphy's marriage became the main topic of their dormitory's night talk yesterday. Yes, you don't know that these stars are particularly afraid of their feelings being exposed. Isn't there a Lou something idol singer in Harbor City? He's in his 40s, and he doesn't dare to disclose his marriage. When he was exposed, he was so scared that he hid his wife. Zhong Zhanzhan was particularly fond of gossip, so she said with great interest, "That's just an idol singer." Mo Fei was not an idol singer. She relied on her singing skills and her ability to become famous. Anyway, I think most of the people who came to the concert today came because they liked her songs. Chu Fongfong gave a different opinion. Okay, anyway, I'm here to watch the fun. Zhong Zhanzhan said with a smile and hugged Chu Fongfong's arm. However, Chu Fongfong and Zhong Zhanzhan didn't chat. They took the time to take a few photos, selfies, and group photos, and prepare to send them back to micro-broadcasting as a souvenir. Unknowingly, the concert began. With the roaring background music, a huge ball surrounded by a huge screen slowly opened. Like a UFO in a science fiction movie, an escalator slowly descended. Suddenly, the lights at the exit flashed wildly, and Murphy finally appeared in the overwhelming cheers of tens of thousands of fans. Behind her, the light was shining, like a god descending to the earth. No, it should be a fairy descending to the earth, because Murphy, wearing a familiar white gauze dress, walked down the escalator like a fairy and walked down to the earth. Beautiful! Chu Fongfong's Zhong Zhanzhan was so excited that she felt as if she was there herself. She shouted along with the fans at the scene. However, Chu Fongfong was more interested in the song Murphy was going to sing. But, based on the accompaniment and the familiar melody, even a true fan like her could recognize it. Even now, I'm still the same. The loneliness of the night can easily make one sad. Murphy raised the microphone, and her first sentence elicited even louder cheers. I didn't hear from you because I was thinking about you. On the stage, Murphy's singing suddenly stopped. Her voice was gentle and beautiful as she said, "Can you join us? If you love me, don't leave. If you say you don't love me." The fans below the stage went crazy. They excitedly sang along with Murphy. Chu Fongfong also sang happily. She liked this song very much. The atmosphere at the scene was ignited. The stars twinkled in the dark auditorium. The fans swayed their light sticks, swaying almost in unison to the beat of the song. After Murphy finished singing the song, Chu Fongfong still wanted to continue. At this time, she heard Zhong Zhanzhan come over and whisper, "Her live performance is really good. No one else can compare to her voice." "I knew it," Chu Fongfong said with some pride. Murphy is one of the few singers who can sing live as well as the recorded version. At this time, Murphy, who finished singing the warm-up song, waited for the cheers of the fans and all kinds of voices saying, "Murphy, I love you," to stop. Finally, she could say her opening remarks. However, to the disappointment of many people, Murphy didn't mention a word about the gossip that caused a stir yesterday. Instead, after thanking the fans who came to support her, she said with a smile, "Today, I'll bring you a new song." This news was so explosive that the fans below the stage couldn't react for a while. But soon, their excited screams rose, and the whole stadium was filled with deafening cheers. A new song. Regardless of whether it was reasonable to sing a new song after the new album was released 2 months ago, it was like a novel. Regardless of whether the author could write so many chapters, they just wanted to urge the author to update. If you have the ability, release 100 chapters. Even if you release 100 chapters every day, I have the money to subscribe. The fans at Murphy's concert had such a mentality. When they heard that Murphy was going to sing a new song, they were already very excited. "Hurry up and sing. We'll definitely buy. Another new song. Murphy is crazy." Chu Fongfong excitedly took Zhong Zhanzhan's hand and said, "This is the first time I've seen a singer release a song so quickly. I hope it's another masterpiece." However, before Chu Fongfong and Zhong Zhanzhan responded, Murphy continued, "Today, for this new song, I've invited a very, very special guest to come to the scene and sing this song with me." Before she finished speaking, the cheers rose again. The fans' curiosity was bursting. Who is it? Which singer? Chu Fong Fong guessed wildly. It can't be. Could it be Yang Yi? Zhong Zhenjin's eyes were burning with the fire of gossip as she said excitedly. I don't think it's possible. Isn't Yang Yi a novel writer? Chu Fong Fong excitedly clenched her fists and said, I think it's Chen Yijie or Mu Xiang. Didn't Murphy say that it's a very special guest to her? Zhong Zhenjin frowned and said, because it's very special, it's possible that it's Yang Yi. You see, isn't it the time when gossip is flying and the wind and waves are on the cusp? If it's very special to her, isn't it her husband? Zhong Zhenjin's guess also appeared in the minds of many fans at the scene. They all widened their eyes, some were excited, and some felt strange. However, there was no need to guess blindly. At the back of the stage, a tall man in a black casual suit slowly walked out with a guitar in his arms. Is it really him? It's really him. Seeing this height, the fans who paid attention to yesterday's gossip immediately recognized him. After confirming the guess in their hearts, the audience screamed again. That's what I said. How could Murphy not respond at all? Chu Fong Fong's Zhong Zhenjin excitedly shook her arm and said, she directly brought him out to meet the parents, no, to meet the fans. Murphy is really decisive. Compared to those stars who refuse to admit it, she's so cool that she has no friends. For this performance, Yang Yi specially wore a suit that he rarely wore, mainly because he was tired of wearing it in his previous life. However, his dressing was not formal. Not only did his suit not come with a tie, but the collar of his shirt was also unbuttoned. There was a sense of unruly wildness in his gentleness. His legs are so long. Chu Fong Fong's Zhong Zhenjin couldn't help but swallow her saliva. She poked Chu Fong Fong and said, Hey, Piggy, did you see that? This Yang Yi, after dressing up properly, is much more handsome. Is it because he's tall? Tall people are handsome in suits. Chu Fong Fong gave an objective evaluation and said, but, I'm a little worried. Can Yang Yi sing? This question also appeared in the hearts of many fans present. They were surprised by Yang Yi's appearance, but they also felt that it was strange. Why would Murphy let an author come out and sing with her? If he didn't sing well, wouldn't it ruin his reputation? Moreover, wouldn't it make people dislike Yang Yi even more? Chu Fong Fong secretly broke into a sweat for Yang Yi. She wasn't like some brainless fans who chased after celebrities to the point of interfering with their relationships. Chu Fong Fong felt that emotional problems were fine as long as Murphy was happy. However, Zhong Zhenjin expressed a different opinion about Chu Fong Fong's question. I think this Yang Yi must be hiding something. Look, he even brought a guitar on stage. Maybe he can sing well. If he doesn't have any singing skills, how could he capture Murphy's heart? Chu Fong Fong thought about it and felt that it made sense. However, there was no need for them to make wild guesses. The music on stage had already started. The prelude was a guitar solo. A burst of warm guitar sound was transmitted through the microphone in front of Yang Yi and into the ears of the fans below the stage. Hey, not bad. Chu Fong Fong's eyes lit up. Chapter 437. When the prelude sounded, the director switched the camera on the big screen to the camera that was aimed at Yang Yi, so even if the audience was far away, they could see Yang Yi's appearance when he played the guitar. Although it was his first time on stage, Yang Yi's good psychological quality allowed him to calmly face the camera and the tens of thousands of audience members below the stage. And his calm face and serious look when he played the guitar made people forget that he was just a small writer for a while. In a trance, they actually felt that he was also a famous singer who could play a beautiful melody. Hey, little pig, I think Yang Yi is getting more and more handsome. What should I do? Zhong Zhenjin said excitedly. A serious man is really handsome. Really? Don't quarrel, we're going to listen to the song. Chu Fong Fong shook her head helplessly. Yang Yi played the prelude very well. Although it was a very slow rhythm, every note seemed to be just right, making people feel warm and comfortable. At this time, the interesting thing was that a line of subtitles appeared on the big screen, showing the name of the song that Murphy was about to sing, Want to Sing Me to You, and then the lyricist and composer were signed under Mu Ziyang's name. Mu Ziyang. Although the prelude was not long, the subtitles passed quickly, but it was still seen by many people. For example, the most gossipy Zhong Zhenjin of Chu Fongfong, she was a little surprised, and several guesses appeared in her mind. The most unreliable one was, could it be that Mu Ziyang is a woman? So he doesn't care at all that Murphy is married to another man? Of course, this was just her wild guess. Mu Ziyang had long been confirmed by Chen Yijie to be a man. Before the fans below the stage had time to be surprised, the camera switched to Murphy's side. She was wearing a white dress and there was a sharp contrast with Yang Yi, as if she was the white of the black and white double devils. Her makeup was not too ostentatious. It was as if she had only applied a glossy pink lipstick. Her delicate and beautiful face was still charming. However, the fairy-like beauty's pair of sparkling beautiful eyes looked at Yang Yi. Anyone could read the deep love in her eyes. Before the fans had time to be jealous, Murphy raised the microphone and sang affectionately, You want to sing me to you while you're still young. Murphy's clear and gentle voice was amplified by the sound system and spread throughout the stadium. It's nice. Chu Fongfong excitedly clenched her fists. She did not dare to make a sound, for fear of ruining the beautiful music. Murphy deserved to be called a talented singer. She used a voice that was not coy at all, which made the hearts of many male fans sway. For example, in front of Chu Fongfong, there was a boy who excitedly said, Wow, wow, so sweet, I think I'm in love. However, his companion laughed and mercilessly pulled him back to the cruel reality. Wake up. Do you think Murphy sang to you? She watched her husband sing. At this moment when Murphy sang, the accompaniment was no longer Yang Yi's guitar alone. The band behind also started their work. Flowers bloom as much as you want. Decorate your years, my buds. Murphy finished singing and smiled. She raised her hand and pointed the camera at Yang Yi. This smile was like a garden full of flowers blooming, bright and enchanting spring in full bloom. However, the camera on the big screen was slowly turned to Yang Yi's side by the cameraman. Yang Yi did not have Murphy's enchanting smile. On the stage, he did not smile and gave people the feeling that he was a little cold. But just as he opened his mouth, the whole audience was shocked. Note 1. Who can replace you? That low and deep voice, with a strong magnetism, suddenly made many picky ears unable to help but burp. Beautiful. Only one word, beautiful. So beautiful that it was suffocating and unbelievable. Was this sung by a writer? Chu Fongfong opened her mouth in surprise, but this scene was playing out in every corner of the venue. Almost everyone was shocked by the moment Yang Yi opened his mouth. They could not believe their ears. They could not believe that Yang Yi's voice was so beautiful. Love as much as you want while you're young. Yang Yi told them the next sentence. Yes, you heard it right. Although they could not see the reactions of the fans below the stage, Murphy, who was next to Yang Yi, was overflowing with joy and pride. Did you see that? This is my husband. Dearest, dearest, the road is long, let's be together. After Yang Yi finished singing, the camera switched to Murphy's side. However, this time, the director used another camera. With a gradual switch, Yang Yi's figure temporarily remained on the screen. For a moment, there was a scene of the two in the same frame. I'll sing me to you. Murphy sang. Before Murphy's long voice fell, Yang Yi also raised his voice and sang the lyrics. Although it did not have the stunning feeling of the bass just now, it still reflected his and Murphy's tacit cooperation. Give me your pure and innocent smile. Although this section was sung by Yang Yi according to the order, Murphy took on the lead part of the song in order to reflect Yang Yi's singing skills. We should have happy, blissful, sunny days. Murphy sang the lead and Yang Yi harmonized. Note 2. Zhong Zhenjin did not feel anything, but Chu Fongfong, who had closed her eyes to listen carefully, could not help but open them. She looked at Yang Yi, who had also appeared on the big screen at this moment, with some surprise. This harmonization was very accurate. Not only did it not steal the lead singer's limelight, but it also maintained a very harmonious complement effect. Like Chu Fong Fong, there were indeed many fans who could hear the difference. At this moment, they had gradually gained an understanding of Yang Yi's singing skills. It was not weaker than a real singer. However, pure fans like Zhong Zhenjun made up the majority. They were also happy. They only needed to listen to the song and enjoy the beauty of the song. This song was indeed suitable for a male and female duet, especially a live version of a male and female duet. I'll sing me to you. This time, it was the opposite. Yang Yi sang the lead and Murphy followed. I'll use my burning feelings to move you, okay? Time is worth remembering, reluctant to part with, shy blushing face. Under the camera, Yang Yi looked at Murphy. His cold face seemed to have softened. His eyes were as deep as the stars, and his tenderness was revealed without any concealment. Being looked at by Yang Yi in public like this, Murphy's heart was sweet and shy. It was really as she sang in the harmonization. Her pure and beautiful face shyly lowered slightly. Who can replace you? Love to your heart's content while you're young. My dearest person, the road is long. Let's be together. It was still Yang Yi who sang this part. That gentle and affectionate magnetic bass made tens of thousands of fans unable to help but indulge in it. Chu Fong Fong closed her eyes and listened with a look of intoxication. However, her roommate did not give her a chance to appreciate it. Zhong Zhenjun, the fake fan, shook her arm vigorously, put on a fangirl face, and shouted, I can't, Yang Yi actually sings so well. When will he debut? I want to be his #1 fangirl. Chu Fong Fong could not help but laugh. She pinched Zhong Zhenjun's baby fat face and said angrily, Can you stop for a moment? Did you forget? This Yang Yi is also taken. He and Murphy have registered their marriage. That's right. Zhong Zhenjun reacted and sighed in disappointment. Chapter 438. In the beginning, Yang Yi's voice was so stunning that many fans forgot to think. They were only immersed in his and Murphy's singing. But as the lyrics were repeated, the initial excitement gradually subsided and their thoughts returned to normal. Yang Yi's singing was very good. This made many fans who were not optimistic about the union between him and Murphy feel conflicted. Now, it seemed that Murphy and Yang Yi were together, and it seemed that it was not bad. In front of them, the two people who were singing affectionately on stage were a perfect match. The man was tall and straight, and the woman was also tall and beautiful. Yang Yi's black suit covered up the burly and oppressive feeling that the photo in the entertainment tabloids gave people. It no longer gave people the illusion that he and Murphy would be Beauty and the Beast when they were together. What made the fans confused was that Yang Yi, who was playing the guitar, exuded a strong artistic aura. His cold face seemed to be tough and handsome at this moment. More importantly, the two of them were singing a love song together. The tacit understanding between them and the way they looked at each other tenderly while holding hands made it difficult for people to dislike them. They were so compatible. How could they bear to break them up? But what about Mu Ziyong? Could it be that they were willing to give up the Mo couple that they had been fans of for a long time? At this moment, many fans could not help but feel pity for Mu Ziyong. They felt that he was a pitiful person who was isolated by the whole world. He wrote a song and even sang a duet for the couple. They wondered if he was full of dog food? They wondered if he was squatting in some corner and crying bitterly? This person was too miserable. Just as the fans were feeling conflicted, Want to Sing Me to You was coming to an end. Dearest, dearest, the road is long. Let's be together. Yang Yi, who had already put down his guitar and came to the front of the stage hand in hand with Murphy, looked at Murphy and finished singing together. It was as if they were telling the fans that just like the lyrics, they had to keep going on like this. Even though Yang Yi lowered his voice so that it could blend in with Murphy's voice, even though it was no longer the magnetic and moving male voice, the fans' attention was no longer on Yang Yi's voice. They looked at Murphy leaning on Yang Yi's shoulder, looked at her, and Yang Yi's fingers intertwined, looked at her, who rarely revealed her emotions, and couldn't help but smile in happiness. At this moment, they couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The music behind him slowly came to an end. At first, there was some silence below the stage, but no one knew who started cheering first. Gradually, it became a chorus of cheers. Gradually, it seemed that everyone was infected, and the whole audience burst into applause and cheers. This was the applause of recognition. Although it came a little late, it was also the first step towards accepting Yang Yi. Amidst the applause and cheers, Murphy, who was leaning on Yang Yi, finally remembered that she was the protagonist of this stage. She finally took the initiative. Murphy and Yang Yi looked at each other and smiled. Then, she pulled Yang Yi to the middle of the edge of the stage. What kind of introduction would it be? The fans below the stage looked forward to it, and the noise gradually stopped. Everyone pricked up their ears to listen. Ahem. In the end, Murphy, who was not good with words, was still a little nervous before she opened her mouth. She seemed to be giving herself courage. She coughed twice, straightened her chest, and said with a serious face, "Hello everyone." Some of the audience couldn't help but laugh, and soft laughter could be heard. However, Murphy continued, "Let me introduce to everyone, this is my husband, Yang Yi." The audience below the stage exclaimed. It wasn't that they were surprised by the name or the identity, but that no one expected Murphy to introduce him so simply and straightforwardly describe the relationship between Yang Yi and her. "Call him husband." Zhong Zhenjin elbowed Chu Fongfong and said with a smile, "So mushy." Chu Fongfong couldn't help but roll her eyes. Then, she said in surprise, "Shouldn't you be disappointed? You just said that you're Yang Yi's fangirl." "I'm still very rational. He's married." Before Zhong Zhenjin could finish, she was interrupted by Chu Fongfong. "Wait, don't be noisy." Chu Fongfong's eyes widened as if she had heard something. She covered Zhong Zhenjin's mouth and looked at the stage in shock. A few seconds ago, Murphy waited for the exclamations to stop. Then, she raised the microphone and said, "Then, you may not know that Yang Yi has a special identity in addition to being a very, very powerful writer as described in the newspaper." Many people, like Chu Fongfong, widened their eyes. They had automatically filtered out Murphy's description of a very, very powerful writer, which was completely in the eye of the beholder. Instead, they focused on the special identity. Could it be, could it be? When the subtitles of the song came out, some people had vaguely guessed the truth, but they didn't dare to believe it at all. Murphy didn't keep them in suspense. She looked very serious and said, "Yang Yi is also a very, very powerful songwriter, which is known to everyone as Mu Zi Ong." Boom! The audience was in an uproar. Was it really Mu Zi Ong? The fans who had this premonition before were all wide-mouthed. It was actually Mu Zi Ong? The fans who hadn't thought of it before were also wide-mouthed. And the fans who had angrily said that Mo Fei would abandon Mu Zi Ong if she didn't want to be with Mu Zi Ong but Yang Yi, opened their mouths wide and looked embarrassed. At this moment, their inner OS. F***CK, how could it be Mu Zi Ong? Zhong Zhenjin, the gossipy girl, was also very excited at this moment. However, she wasn't embarrassed. Instead, she found it very interesting. She pulled down Chu Fongfong's hand that was covering her mouth and poked Chu Fongfong's waist. She said with a smile, "This is fun. What about those guys under Murphy's micro-broadcasting who indiscriminately scolded Yang Yi? Now they find out that Yang Yi is their idol, Mu Zi Ong. I feel like I'm going to die from embarrassment." Chu Fongfong didn't have time to pay attention to Zhong Zhenjin. She looked at the stage and heard Murphy's confirmation. "Yes, Mu Zi Ong is Yang Yi. Yang Yi is Mu Zi Ong. Phew." Chu Fongfong let out a long sigh of relief. She smiled happily and said, "Don't worry about whether it's embarrassing or not. I think this is the best result for the fans and Murphy." Yes. Wasn't this what everyone wanted to see? What the fans hoped for had all come true. First of all, Mo Fei and Mu Xiang were a couple. When the two of them got together, the fans didn't have to worry, because in the future, they would create more and better music. Just like today's song, Want to Sing Me to You, the sweetness was refreshing. Secondly, Murphy was married to love. Looking at her happy face, even some of the fans who were still brooding about it just wanted to give their blessings at this moment. Since he was already satisfied, what did it matter even if the previous misunderstandings, the grudges, and the unpleasant words spouted out were difficult to take back and unavoidable awkwardness? After the awkwardness, they could continue to give their blessings and cheer for Murphy. Therefore, after the uproar and silence brought about by the shock, applause and cheers gradually sounded from the audience. Finally, the applause and cheers covered the entire stadium. Murphy, you must be happy. The late blessings and acceptance from tens of thousands of fans made Murphy's eyes fill with tears. Thank you everyone. Murphy was moved and choked with sobs. Yang Yi considerately opened his left arm and hugged her. However, today, Mo Fei didn't come here to embarrass them. She wanted to officially disclose her relationship and family situation to the public. Therefore, she hadn't completed her mission yet. Murphy calmed down and raised the microphone again. She smiled happily and said, "Actually, I want to introduce someone to you today." The fans below the stage were stunned for a moment and cheered wildly. Chapter 439. Cece was also dressed up beautifully today. She was wearing a light blue dress with woven sleeves and a light blue hairband on her head. On the right side of the hairband, there was a light blue gauze flower inlaid on it. Although the light blue color did not have the girlish aura of pink, it still made the little girl look extra lively and cute in it. After her father went on stage to sing, she was taken care of by Aunt Mo Xiaowan. However, she did not stay in the lounge, but hid backstage. She had watched her parents' performance. There were also some dancers backstage. They were waiting for the next performance to accompany Murphy. At this time, they were also chattering. They all say that Murphy sings well. I didn't expect Yang Yi to sing so well. She turned her little head and looked at their backs. She heard a few words in her ears. They seemed to be praising her father. The little girl was happy and proud. She puffed out her chest and muttered softly, "That's my papa." However, it was noisy backstage. She's voice was soft, so no one noticed. Mo Xiaojuan's attention was not on Shi. She listened carefully to Murphy's introduction on stage. However, she held Shi's hand in case she got lost. Finally, she heard the instructions. Mo Xiaowan smiled. She squatted down and put her hand on Shi's shoulder. She said softly, Shi, it's your turn to go on stage." It turned out that Murphy had suddenly thought of this problem after she came back last night. She discussed it with Yang Yi. She felt that since the media had exposed Shi's photos, there was no need for her to continue hiding Shi. She might as well openly introduce Shi to the public. That was why she was doing this now. However, even though they had played on this stage a few times in the past 2 days and had been fine during rehearsals, Murphy and the others didn't expect that when it was Shi's turn to perform tonight, there would be a problem. She was seen running towards her parents on the stage. However, as soon as she poked her head out, she felt the enthusiastic cheers from the audience and was stunned. This was different from the rehearsal. Why are there so many people? The deafening screams were especially clear and terrifying when Shi came out from backstage. After all, the little girl was only 4.5 years old. She was a little stunned by this big scene. After hearing this, she subconsciously turned around and ran. The protagonist ran back after showing his face. The loyal cameraman recorded this scene and conveyed it to the audience sitting in the corners through the big screen. Ouch! Murphy's fans below the stage couldn't help but laugh. However, it was a kind laugh, as they felt that this little girl was too cute. Speaking of which, it was interesting. Perhaps it was because Yang Yi attracted too much attention, but Shi, who was also in the center of the whirlpool of gossip, didn't receive as much attention. Everyone only discussed her age enthusiastically. Or perhaps it was because she was a child, but the kind-hearted people were a little more polite. When they criticized Yang Yi, they didn't mention she. Now, the live audience knew that she didn't need to be introduced. She was Murphy and Mu Xiong's daughter. Moreover, she was so cute. Who could bear to blame her? Just as they watched in amusement as she ran back and wondered what to do, a woman covered her face and ran out with she. This woman brought she to Yang Yi's side, then covered her face and ran off. This scene on the screen caused the fans to laugh again. That's right, it was Emo Xiaowan. Yes, this was simply burying her head in the sand. But Emo Xiaowan, who was covering her face, was also in despair. She hadn't thought that she would have to go on stage. She hadn't touched up her makeup and her hair was a mess, but now it was too late. She could only cover her face and send she, who was too scared to go on stage alone, onto the stage. Of course, Emo Xiaowan wasn't the main character. After the audience laughed, they didn't care about the woman who was covering her face. They all focused on the big screen. The cute little girl was being carried by Yang Yi. The laughter made the little girl so shy that she buried her face in her father's arms like an ostrich. "What's wrong? Are you afraid?" Yang Yi said gently in his daughter's ear. "Don't be afraid. Dad is here." In her father's arms and listening to his voice, Shishi's heart calmed down a little. She hugged her father's neck and complained in a low voice, "Papa, it's so dark. There are so many people. I'm afraid." It turned out that it was also because of the darkness. How could she not be afraid of such a dark mass and such terrible sounds? "Don't be afraid." Yang Yi said gently to Shishi, "Dad is holding you. You can be afraid of anything, because whether it's a monster or a big bad wolf, Dad will defeat them, right?" In order to let Shishi relax a little, Yang Yi pointed to the camera in front of her and said, "Look, this big camera is filming us." Shishi couldn't help but be curious. After all, she didn't experience this when she walked on stage in the afternoon. She turned her head and looked in the direction her father pointed. "Then look at the big screen behind you. See if we're on it?" Yang Yi smiled and pointed to the super big screen, which was where Murphy appeared before. At this time, Shishi suddenly felt as if the whole world only had Shishi, her father, and her mother next to her. She didn't need to be too nervous. Then, she followed her father and looked behind. "Wow! It's so big!" The little girl showed an amazed expression. The cameraman quickly turned the camera around, and it was just enough to capture the young girl's face. Her big round eyes and cute little face instantly captured the hearts of many fans. I'm on it." She forgot to be nervous. She giggled, grabbed her father's arm, and pointed at the big screen above. Although they couldn't hear what she was saying, her smiling eyes, which were like crescent moons, instantly infected all the fans. Their mood also became clear and happy. Finally, they could get back on track. Murphy held a microphone and said, "Shishi, can you introduce yourself to the brothers and sisters who came to watch Mom's concert today?" Shishi turned her head. Although she was still a little nervous, she could still communicate. She nodded her little head. "Then tell your brothers and sisters first. What's your name?" Murphy guided. Yang Yi pointed the microphone in his hand at Shishi. The little girl's crisp voice finally came through the sound system. "My name is Yang Shi. I'm 4 years old this year." Murphy didn't need to ask the last sentence. She habitually said it herself. She had introduced herself like this before. When she heard her voice become so loud, she looked around in surprise. Hearing Shi's soft voice and unique emphasis, the fans below the stage couldn't help but applaud her. "Then, what's your papa's name?" Murphy asked with a smile. "My papa's name is Yang Yi." She said obediently. Now, she was no longer nervous. Moreover, she felt that it was very fun. She had been curious about how the microphone in front of her could make her voice so loud. Her ability to adapt was quite good. "What's your mom's name?" Murphy continued to ask. "My mom's name is Murphy." It's you." the little girl said with a smile. This sweet laughter almost softened the hearts of the fans below the stage. Thank you, She. Yes, this is the second person I want to introduce to you today. She is Yang Yi's and my daughter, She. She's self-introduction ended here. After Murphy kissed the little girl's face, she asked Yang Yi to take She down first. After watching Yang Yi return to the backstage with She in his arms, Murphy sincerely bowed to the audience and said, "I'm sorry that we have kept it from you for so many years. It's also my fault. I've always had a deep burden of being an idol. I'm worried that you can't accept it. I'm also worried that after exposure, excessive media attention will be detrimental to the child's growth. Can you forgive me for telling you now?" "Forgive me. Of course, I forgive you." The audience's voices rose one after another. Mo Fei's sincere explanation won her a round of applause from the audience. And the fans were all very cute. Thank you, everyone. Yang Yi is a relatively low-key person, so he used the name Mu Zi-ong before. He was also worried that the relationship between us would be exposed. I didn't expect that it would cause misunderstandings. However, please rest assured that in the future, we will still work hard to create more good songs for you as before. Murphy bowed deeply again. It doesn't matter. As long as you are happy. We all like you very much. We also like She. The screams of the fans below the stage made Mo Fei feel warm in her heart. Although this confession took a long time, after all, this was Murphy's concert. Murphy didn't forget. Thank you again, everyone. I also hope that you will pay less attention to the child and give her more space to grow. I don't know what to say, so I will continue to sing for you. From today onwards, everything seems to have returned to the beginning. However, just like the songs that Yang Yi wrote for me, I also hope that I cannot forget my original intention and continue to work hard on the road of music. I will sing for all of you who support me. This is enough. Murphy wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and said with a smile. Today, she really smiled a lot, but this scene made the fans happy and distressed at the same time. However, when the music started, everything seemed to have returned to the right track. Murphy also quickly returned to her normal state. If pride is not coldly smashed by the sea of reality, how would you know how hard you need to work to go far? Murphy's clear and beautiful voice sounded in the stadium again. All the impetuous hearts calmed down. The fans waved their light sticks and quietly listened to Murphy's song. No, they listened to her talk about her original dream. Chapter 440. On Murphy's micro-broadcasting, the battlefield in the comment section was still in a heated battle of words. Murphy's fans and Yang Yi's fans formed two opposing forces, neither giving way to the other. In the beginning, Yang Yi's fans did maintain restraint, but later, they completely lost control. They could not scold Murphy, so they angrily attacked the person supported by Murphy's fans, Mu Zi-ong. However, just as they were arguing, the fans who were watching the concert at the front line sent back news. Stop arguing, Mu Zi-ong and Yang Yi are the same person. When the first person said that, Murphy's fans did not believe it at all. Mu Zi-ong's real name is Liang. What does he have to do with Yang Yi? Even if it's bull**T, don't make it up like that? Mu Zi-ong's real name was Liang. This rumor seemed to have come from a certain variety show. However, after the nonsensical tabloids reported it carelessly, and after word of mouth was full of mistakes, many people actually believed this rumor to be true. This was also why when Yang Yi appeared, no one thought of the possibility that he was Mu Zi-ong. However, very soon, the fans who were watching the concert at the front line sent back more and more information. The statement that Yang Yi was Mu Zi-ong also appeared at the front line of the battlefield. This made the two groups of people who were arguing unable to continue, and they all understood the truth. It should be true. I have a friend who was watching the concert. I just called him and asked. He said that when Murphy announced this news, everyone was stunned. On micro-broadcasting, the two groups of people were also stunned. Yang Yi was Mu Zi-ong? Then why were we arguing before? It was like a flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple, not acknowledging our own family. Now, the credibility of this news was getting higher and higher. Although it was only Murphy's side of the story, it could be said that it was a fact. One had to know that, in this world, if a public figure said such things, they would have to bear the legal responsibility. If Yang Yi was not Mu Ziyang and impersonated him, he would be sent to jail if he was found out. Moreover, if Yang Yi was impersonating Mu Ziyang, then Murphy would have offended the real Mu Ziyang. It was not worth it to pay such a heavy price for such a lie. Just as the two groups of people gave up and looked at each other awkwardly, the people in front of them finally remembered something else. Previously, they had only been focused on the news that Yang Yi is Mu Ziyang. Yang Yi's singing is so good that I thought he was a real singer. It's such a pity that he didn't debut. Murphy and Yang Yi sang a new song at the concert. The two of them sang a duet. It was super nice and sweet. Could it be because of the power of love? The speed at which he releases songs has also increased. A new song? Many netizens expressed their envy, jealousy, and hatred. Moreover, some fans who had bought tickets but did not go because of the gossip were so angry that their intestines turned green with regret. That was not the only news. The people in front of them were too happy. They proudly spread the second-hand news to others. Murphy's daughter is super cute. It turns out that she and Yang Yi have known each other for 5 to 6 years. They actually hid it from the world for so long. It turns out that the newspaper guessed that Murphy's previous retirement was because she wanted to have a child. That was not wrong. I really admire Murphy's courage. Yang Yi is also super handsome. Just look at the photo that was exposed. I think he is very stylish in person. Moreover, his singing is so good. I wonder when he will debut. One after another, shocking news was thrown out. Finally, the two groups of people who had been happily scolding each other quietly retreated. Murphy's fans were very embarrassed. They felt that they had been scolding for 2 days, only to realize that they had made a big mistake. A small number of people apologized sincerely, but most of them could only choose to pretend that nothing had happened. As for Yang Yi's fans, although they had retreated from the battlefield, they seemed to have forgotten that they had previously scolded Mu Ziyang. They arrogantly returned to Yang Yi's personal forum, as if they had returned victorious. They proudly discussed Yang Yi's new identity. Almighty Yang Yi is indeed a genius. He is good at writing books and is so good at writing songs. I went to listen to his songs and they were all very good. This is a real composer. I just want to know, is there anything that Almighty Yang Yi can't do? He doesn't know how to do a signing. Someone said bitterly. However, someone quickly said, Almighty Yang Yi has been very low-key before. It's probably because he doesn't want his relationship with Murphy to be exposed. Now that he is half a public figure, can't he do a signing for us? That's right. That's very likely. The fans excitedly tagged the staff of Sahara Publishing, hoping to get a satisfactory answer from them. However, they couldn't get a reply from Yang Yi for the signing for the time being. Yang Yi had other things to do. At night, as Murphy's concert was coming to an end, many media outlets noticed the defection of Murphy's fans. Many people also leaked the news to the media. Such a shocking piece of news made many media reporters feel incredulous. They all tried to verify it. However, they didn't need to verify it. At around 11 p.m., Murphy's micro-broadcasting was updated. It should be written by Mo Shaowan, who introduced the situation of Yang Yi being Mu Ziyang. She also explained and apologized to the public for concealing the truth before. In the end, of course, it was Mo Fei who specially asked the media and fans to give Cici the space to grow freely. Attached to the Weibo post was a picture of a family of 3 on stage, which was taken by the photographer on the scene. Retreat. Get me a new headline right now. Who knew how many reporters from various media outlets would have to work overtime tonight? Sure enough, the next day, all the major newspapers and entertainment tabloids were talking about Murphy's marriage and the fact that Yang Yi was Mu Ziyang. In fact, before the mobile internet was fully developed, many people still relied on newspapers to get information about the outside world. So, when people woke up early in the morning to read the headlines, their jaws almost dropped. Damn, Mu Ziyang and Yang Yi are the same person? Then why did Yang Yi have such a stage name? However, Yang Yi didn't want to explain that. It would become an unsolved mystery in history. However, it could be said that after one night, the direction of public opinion had changed. Originally, there was a group of people who were gloating that Murphy would suffer a great loss in the storm of public opinion. But now, many people were congratulating Murphy and wishing her a happy marriage. They also hoped that she and Yang Yi could have more works. Of course, the heat of the matter hadn't died down yet. On Monday, the Hong Kong media reported that when they interviewed Chan Yijie gave an answer to the matter. Haha, yes, Mu Ziyang is Yang Yi. I knew it long ago, and I know that he and Murphy are a couple. But, Mr. Mu Ziyang asked me not to tell anyone about it. I had been holding it in for a long time, but now I can finally say it. With Chen Yijie's confirmation, no one doubted the fact that Yang Yi was Mu Ziyang anymore. However, Yang Yi, who was at the center of public opinion, had already returned to Zhongqing. Murphy had to attend some business activities in Shanghai, so he and she came back first. Although the matter of the exposure had been properly resolved, Yang Yi wasn't happy. He wanted to find the person who stabbed him in the back. Who did it? Chapter 441. Tianmei had been investigating internally for a few days, but they couldn't find any clues. Zhu Jie blamed himself, so he stopped the recording of That Night and stayed in his office. Through the crack in the door, he used a mirror to look at the simple office on the other side of the corridor. If you have the time to spy on people, why don't you listen to my arrangements and participate in this month's popular variety show? As long as you ask, Sister Ling can definitely arrange it for you. Du Luan said helplessly as he played with his phone. What do you know? Zhu Jie said without turning his head. I have to give Mu Ziyang an explanation. Didn't he already give you a song? Who cares? Just sing this song well and earn what you need to earn, Du Luan said as he plugged his phone into the charging cable, then stood up and stretched. I said that I would help him solve this problem, but in the end, this photo was leaked to the media by that bastard. Not only did it not solve the problem, but it also made a mess for him. Zhu Jie was thirsty, so he closed the door and poured himself a glass of water. He then explained, if I didn't help him find that person, how could I sing this song with a clear conscience? Plus, I still want his second song. Then why are you spying on Jian Chua? Didn't you already rule her out as a suspect? Du Luan asked. Anyway, I think she's suspicious. The USB flash drive has been with her for the longest time, so she's the most likely person to steal it. Zhu Jie was tired from standing, so he simply moved a chair and sat by the door to continue spying. Du Luan rubbed his eyebrows and said helplessly, I think you should give Mu Ziyang's, Yang Yi's, email address to his teacher. That's all we can find. Anyway, the matter has been solved, and the gossip has stopped. There's no need to continue investigating. Zhu Jie waved his hand and said, Don't talk to me like that. If you don't want to help, then get lost. Hey, Du Luan, why do I feel like you're getting more and more arrogant recently? You're not usually like this. Zhu Jie was still loyally helping Yang Yi find the culprit, but Yang Yi didn't know. He had just returned from Shanghai and was very dissatisfied with the feedback from Zhu Jie and Tianmei. He even felt that Zhu Jie and Tianmei's people were playing with him. It was true that a profit-seeking paparazzi hunter was quite suspicious, but Yang Yi felt that Tianmei's people were also quite suspicious. Outsiders are always unreliable. If I want to find out the truth, I have to do it myself. After Yang Yi returned to Zhong City, he coaxed Shi, who was exhausted from the long journey, to sleep. Then, he went to the study to tidy up some equipment. As a professional habit, Yang Yi dug out a secret compartment in the study and hid some tools just in case. For example, there were some scattered parts inside that could be assembled into a pistol. There was also a box of yellow bullets. Yang Yi had bought all of these on the black market, so he probably wouldn't need them. However, Yang Yi felt that it would always be better to keep himself and his family a secret. There were also some parts that were also bought from the black market. After Yang Yi's modification, they could be made into mobile remote control surveillance equipment, just like in the movies. Of course, there were also real sharp knives that could cut through iron like mud. Although Yang Yi also knew how to use a gun, he was an expert in cold weapons. With a knife in hand, he was a killer. However, he didn't need to use the murder weapon yet. What Yang Yi needed to tidy up was some surveillance equipment. He wanted to keep an eye on Niu Meiling and Jian Chua. As for Zhu Jie, Yang Yi had lost trust in him, so he decided to install surveillance equipment on him again so that he could find out who the real mastermind was. Of course, Yang Yi wouldn't force it like the last time. He felt that he couldn't alert the enemy, so he had to do it quietly. Just as Yang Yi was thinking about the surveillance plan, he suddenly remembered that he had left a listening device with Zhu Jie's agent. Let's listen to what Du Luan said. Maybe he knows some of Zhu Jie's secrets. Yang Yi felt that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of this. After all, if Zhu Jie was really that shrewd, he wouldn't have said it in front of his agent. But maybe he could catch the fish that escaped the net? So, Yang Yi searched for the recordings on his computer. However, the recordings were only from the last 3 days. Yang Yi could only start from 3 days ago, which was Friday. Friday was the day that the news of Murphy's wedding was exposed. Yang Yi couldn't find any clues. The only relevant recording was that Zhu Jie asked Du Luan if Jian Chua was in the office. As for what Zhu Jie said to Jian Chua, Yang Yi didn't know at all. The next day's recording, Yang Yi fast-forwarded it. When he heard the conversation between Zhu Jie and Du Luan, he slowed it down to a normal speed. This wasn't a recording of a phone call. It was in the office, so Du Luan might have put his phone in his pocket. So, the conversation between the two was muffled. Luckily, Yang Yi had bought a voice processing software from the black market. After processing it, he could barely hear their conversation. Zhu Jie told Du Luan about Niu Meiling and Jian Chua's conclusion after questioning them. It was probably the paparazzi hunter who sold the goods to both parties. However, Yang Yi also heard Zhu Jie angrily express that he didn't trust Jian Chua. He felt that Jian Chua was still very suspicious. The conversation between the two was more detailed. Through Du Luan's questioning, Zhu Jie basically repeated the content of yesterday's meeting. However, Yang Yi was now skeptical of Zhu Jie's words. He felt that any kind of solemn vow was hypocritical, and any kind of sincere words were like a lie full of loopholes. The recording took a lot of time. Before he knew it, it was already evening. Yang Yi had to stop and prepare dinner for Shi, bathe her, and put her to sleep. When Shi fell asleep, he continued. Originally, Yang Yi thought that it was impossible to find the fish that had escaped the net. Suddenly, on Saturday night, Du Luan's recorded phone call made Yang Yi's eyes widen. "It's okay. I told you, it'll be fine. They couldn't find any loopholes in our plan. They thought it was that teacher who went back on his word. Haha. Zhu Jie is a big idiot. He's so stupid that he still thinks that your manager is the one who leaked the photos. No, he would never think that it was me. And you, if you didn't open the door for me and unlock the drawer, I wouldn't have been able to get the USB flash drive. Okay, Zhen, did I say that I wouldn't give you the money? According to our previous agreement, I'll take 70% and you take 30%. After all, other than being strong, I was also the one who came up with the idea. I'll give you the money. How can I go back on my word? It's just that the bank transfer is too big of a target, so it's not worth it. I'll withdraw it bit by bit now. When your new album hits the charts, I'll give you a big bag of cash directly." Later, after Du Luan hung up the phone, he was still mumbling something about a money-hungry B*TCH. Yang Yi couldn't take it anymore. He dragged the progress bar forward until he finished listening to every word of the phone call. Yang Yi finally understood what was going on. F*CK. It was really a case of wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance. Yang Yi only wanted to hear if Zhu Jie had revealed any tricks in private. He didn't expect that he would accidentally find the person who set him up. This Du Luan, he didn't expect it. He didn't expect that he was the real mastermind. Zhen Zhan was also despicable, but at most, she could only be considered an accomplice. But, how could it be him? Yang Yi had too little information. He only knew that Du Luan had profited a lot from this incident. He didn't know that Du Luan had risked his life to steal Murphy's news for money. It all started after Zhu Jie became popular. But, to make a long story short, Du Luan had earned some money from Zhu Jie. He wanted to earn more, so he invested his money in the stock market. At first, he was lucky and earned a lot, but the good times didn't last long. The stocks he bought fell. Du Luan, who was addicted to the stock market and wanted to earn back his money, unknowingly spent more. Finally, the stocks were stuck again, and Du Luan realized that he didn't have enough money to spend. After Zhu Jie's new year, he didn't start working again. Du Luan could only worry and live on his basic salary. Just then, Zhu Jie told Du Luan that Niu Meiling had spent 500,000 to buy the USB flash drive, and Du Luan started to have other ideas. While Zhu Jie and Niu Meiling were in a stalemate, Du Luan contacted Zhen Zhan, who he had a close relationship with. With Zhen Zhan as a spy, Du Luan easily copied the information from the USB flash drive. Then, he sold the information to the entertainment tabloid. Don't underestimate Murphy's influence. Although it was second-hand information, Du Luan still sold it for 600,000. Plus, he told Zhen Zhan that he sold it for 400,000. No wonder Yang Yi was so focused on Zhu Jie that he didn't notice that Du Luan had been trying to get information from Zhu Jie. Now that he thought about it, the recording had many flaws. But, no matter why Du Luan did this, Yang Yi could finally breathe a sigh of relief. On one hand, he found the mastermind, and on the other hand, Yang Yi could clear Zhu Jie's suspicion. This young master was a little retarded, but he was still loyal. Now, what Yang Yi had to consider was how to solve Du Luan's problem. Yang Yi's first solution was to give the recording of Du Luan and Zhen Zhan scolding Zhu Jie for being an idiot to Zhu Jie, and let Zhu Jie chase Du Luan away. But, if it was just this, wouldn't it be too easy to let him go? Yang Yi couldn't vent the anger in his heart. Moreover, Yang Yi thought of an important problem. Du Luan knew about his deal with Zhu Jie. If Zhu Jie chased Du Luan away, Du Luan would have no other choice. He might break the pot and reveal other things. This is really troublesome. Yang Yi gritted his teeth and walked around in the study. Why don't I just kill him? Yang Yi's eyes flickered. He caressed the sharp blade that he took out when he was organizing the equipment, and his whole body emitted a cold aura. However, when Yang Yi was thinking about some bad things, someone was also thinking about killing him. Chapter 442. In the vast Texas of the United States of America, a tall man with a pipe in his mouth and a wide-brimmed felt hat, dressed like a cowboy in the movies, followed behind on a horse. In front of him, 6 real cowboys with black and white skin were riding on horses, helping him herd the hundreds of Angus cattle on the farm to graze on the grassland that was growing well in spring. "Mo, you can go back. Leave this to us." An old white cowboy in his 50s or 60s, but he was in a good mental state, rode his horse over. He took off his hat and wiped his sweat as he spoke. The sun in the afternoon was too strong, and the boss's body was not as strong as the local cowboys. The old cowboy was worried that the boss would not be able to take it. "Ford, look after these kids for me." Mo Hennion pointed at the dark-skinned, hornless Angus cattle and nodded at the old cowboy. After that, he pulled the reins and turned around to head back to the farm's residence. Mo Hennion had bought this farm for almost 20 years. It was originally a wasteland, but after 20 years of operation, it had changed drastically. Along the way, there was a fertile grassland. Although it was originally a grassland, after many years of modification, the weeds had been removed, and high-quality pasture had been planted. Whether it was for grazing or harvesting for winter, it was a good choice. Of course, the sun was a little strong today, so Emohenian chose to go to the woods at the side to avoid the heat. These original woods were left behind by Emohenian. Not only could they provide shelter for people and cattle, but they could also maintain the ecological balance of this land. Close to the residential area, there were dozens of acres of land planted with cotton and sorghum. Of course, there were still lush early seedlings. The dozens of acres of land were all mechanized. There were all kinds of machines in Emohenian's warehouse, such as tractors, planters, combine harvesters, hay balers, and so on. A few years ago, Emohenian did not want to be outdone. He drove the tractor and worked with the hired cowboys in the field. But now, he could only be a supervisor. Most of the practical work was left to the professional cowboys hired by the farm. Uncle Anderso, a half-grown black lad, shirtless, was coming out of the pond dripping with water. When he saw Emohenian, he quickly lowered his head obediently, as if he had done something wrong. "Greg, you sneaked out to swim again. I'll tell your father later and let him beat you to death." Emohenian shouted angrily. "I'm sorry, Uncle Emo, I was wrong. I'm going back to work now." The young black man scowled miserably and ran away. Greg was the son of a cowboy on Emohenian's farm. Although he was black, Missouri Henian had watched him grow up. Emohenian treated him as his own nephew. Therefore, even though Emohenian had purposely pulled a long face earlier, the old man had no intention of telling on him at all. However, Emohenian's temper was usually very irritable. Greg was very afraid and was scolded. Emohenian was in a good mood after successfully playing a prank. He laughed heartily and continued to ride his horse back to his residence. Emohenian's house was built later. It was originally a wooden building with a Western style. Later, Emohenian felt that it was uncomfortable to live in, so he remodeled it into a modern house with a Chinese style. Don't underestimate Emohenian. In his early years, Emohenian was still an architectural designer. Otherwise, how could he have the money to emigrate and buy a large farm? Although he had changed his profession to become a farm owner, Emohenian had no problem designing a house for himself. From the outside, the unique courtyard had the feeling of an ancient garden. There were flowing water, small bridges, stone carvings, and window carvings. Of course, in order to be compatible with Western culture, the courtyard was not enclosed. Instead, it was wide open and did not have the restrictive feeling of a wall. The house was also made of white walls and black tiles. The weather in Texas was hot, so the design of the house was ventilated. It was warm in winter and cool in summer. The design of the cornices also restored the unique spirituality of ancient architecture. Of course, the interior of the house was more modern. There were ceramic tiles, glass walls, brilliant and bright lights, and so on. Emohenian was not a pedantic architectural designer. He could fuse ancient elements with a modern and comfortable living environment. Don't think that a Chinese-style building in a large farm would stand out and be despised by others. The farm owners from the same town came here as guests. When they saw Emohenian's mansion, each one was more envious than the other. They all rushed to ask Emohenian to design a house for them. Emohenian went a little too far. When he returned home, he found that his wife was not there. "Where did Madam go?" Emohenian asked the housekeeper at home. "I don't know. She took a call and hurried out." The housekeeper shook her head. But there were some notes left beside the phone. "I don't know if Madam still needs them, so I didn't get rid of them." Emohenian was just asking casually, but the housekeeper's words made him a little curious. He went to take a look at the notes. On the sticky notes, the first page was still Emohenian's own handwriting and Zhou Mingyu's handwriting. There were a few other pages that were filled with trivial matters. Emohenian flipped through them until he reached the last page of the sticky notes. Zhou Mingyu had written a name and a line of words on the sticky notes. Yang Yi. However, the word E was crossed out and a word E was added next to it. For some reason, when Emohenian saw this name, he vaguely felt displeased. Perhaps it was because she's surname was Yang and not Mo? Mo Henian was not very fond of this surname all these years. And the next line of words made Mo Henian feel a little puzzled. The domestic media broke the news and the internet domain news has been reprinted. What did that mean? Mo Henian frowned. The domestic media referred to China? Could it be that something happened to his daughter in China? He still knew about the internet domain news. It was a domestic news portal. Sometimes, if he wanted to know about the domestic news, Mo Henian would also go there to take a look. The old man's curiosity grew. He simply took the note to the study, turned on the computer, and logged into the internet domain news website to read. However, the old man could not find any Yang E on the first page. Mo Henian did not have the patience to slowly search. He directly went to the internet domain search function and typed the two words Yang E into the computer with great difficulty. Fortunately, this was their family's computer. Otherwise, there really was no Chinese input method. Not long after, several news articles popped up. The title of the first article was shockingly written. Yang E is Muzi Ong? Murphy and he were secretly married for 6 years? Mo Henian's eyes almost popped out. The following news articles fanned the flames even more. Breaking news. Murphy's husband is not a nobody. Yang E is actually a best-selling author. It's a done deal. Murphy's marriage certificate photo has also been exposed. The super-popular singer Murphy is already married and has a child. What is the background of this lucky man, Yang E? Appearing at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau with a strange man. Murphy has actually stepped into the marriage hall. Mo Henian's face darkened. He clicked on these news articles one by one and finally saw the report where Murphy admitted that Yang E was Yang Shi's biological father. Chapter 443. Looking at the picture, the strange man was smiling and looking at his daughter and granddaughter with a cunning expression. Mo Henian's breathing became as heavy and rapid as a red-eyed Angus cow. Finally, you've appeared. Mo Henian clenched his teeth and slammed his fist on the table. He clearly remembered how Murphy looked when she returned to the farm 5 years ago when she was pregnant. When he interrogated her, she refused to say anything and even hid in her room to cry secretly. If it weren't for the fact that Cece was born and the little girl's childish murmurs calmed him down temporarily, Mo Henian didn't know when he would be able to let go of the displeasure in his heart. But now he had appeared again. Mo Henian's resentment and anger rose again. This bastard made his daughter pregnant out of wedlock and raised the child alone for 3 to 4 years. He had already abandoned her once. What was the point of reuniting now? Could he still cover up the fact that he was a scumbag? Mo Henian couldn't help it. He stood up abruptly and accidentally overturned the chair under his butt. However, the old man had no intention of helping him up. He angrily went to his bedroom and took out an old model Remington M870 from the locked gun cabinet. It had a long barrel and a classic horizontal anti-skid wooden handguard. It looked no different from an antique. However, Mo Henian took out a few red-headed copper-bottom shotgun shells from the cartridge box and stuffed them into the magazine with gritted teeth. With a click, he pushed the cylinder and pushed the shotgun shells into the firing position. This antique gun had astonishingly turned into a great killing machine. If I don't destroy this bastard, my surname isn't Mo. Mo Henian gritted his teeth and put the gun aside and began to pack his clothes. Meng, you're too much. Fei got married and you didn't tell me anything. Did you forget me, your best friend? Or are you worried that I can't afford the wedding gift? Murphy's mother, Zhou Mengyu, was also dumbfounded when she received a half-congratulatory, half-reproachful call from her former friends in the entertainment industry. After a series of questions, Zhou Mengyu understood the ins and outs of the matter. Of course, Zhou Mengyu's feelings towards Yang E were similar to Mo Henian's. It was just that she was calmer and wouldn't be so irascible as to make a move without clarifying the situation. She also knew Mo Henian's temper, so after Zhou Mengyu put down the phone, she didn't dare to continue calling it home. Instead, She put on her windbreaker, grabbed her handbag, and hurried out of the house with her phone. She went to a coffee shop in town to call her daughter. However, Zhou Mingyu did not expect that Mo Henian would see her scribbling on a piece of paper out of habit. Furthermore, Mo Henian even followed the vine to the melon. At this time, the unaware Zhou Mingyu called Murphy. However, the person that answered the phone was Mo Xiaowan. Mo Xiaowan seemed to be very surprised by Zhou Mingyu's call. She was even a little panicked. She stammered, "Auntie, are you looking for me? Wait, are you looking for Sister Fei? She's busy right now. She's attending an event." A woman's senses were still very sensitive. Zhou Mingyu could hear Mo Xiaojuan's panic, so she asked suspiciously, "You know why I'm calling, right?" Mo Xiaowan stammered, unable to speak. How could she not have guessed? It was just that before, whether it was her, Murphy, or Yang Yi, they were all busy dealing with the crisis of public opinion brought about by this exposure. They didn't think about Murphy's parents' reaction at all. When she picked up Zhou Mingyu's call, Mo Xiaowan instantly thought of it. That's right. The media was already stirring up a storm. Even if her uncle lived abroad in the countryside, even if her aunt had left the entertainment industry for many years, their news wouldn't be completely blocked out. No matter what, so many days had passed. It was impossible that they hadn't heard anything at all. Zhou Mingyu wasn't in the mood to play a guessing game with Mo Xiaowan. She then said in a reproachful tone, "That's enough, Xiaowan. This child, you're becoming more and more disobedient to your aunt. Murphy's marriage is such a big deal, and you didn't even tell me?" Mo Xiaowan stammered, "Auntie, you can't blame me for this. Sister Fei was worried that Uncle would find out about the news and wouldn't be able to sit still and fight with Yang Yi, right? So she didn't know how to tell you. Then this time, for some reason, the media exposed it. Sigh, the two of you are really going to piss me off." Zhou Mingyu said angrily, "All right, let's not talk about you. Now, tell me, who exactly is this Yang Yi? Is he she's father? What's his character like?" If it had been Mo Xiaowan a few months ago, she might have added insult to injury for Yang Yi. However, Mo Xiaowan had already changed sides. Moreover, Yang Yi was her financial backer and boss, so she could only try her best to put in a good word for Yang Yi. He's she's father, her biological father. Yang Yi actually has a good relationship with Sister Fei. He's not bad, too. He's from a village in Anyang province and he used to be a soldier. When she heard this, Zhou Mingyu frowned. She felt that something was amiss. It wasn't that she looked down on people from the village, but she felt that Yang Yi and Murphy's backgrounds were too different, which would lead to a huge gap between the two of them. Their personalities, hobbies, and so on were incompatible. Think about it. A soldier from a village and a female celebrity who came back from abroad and was accepting new things in the entertainment industry. How many common topics could they have? Fortunately, Mo Xiaojuan's next words changed Zhou Mingyu's opinion. But Yang Yi is still very good. He wrote his own novels, which sold very well, and earned a lot of money. He also knows music, so he personally wrote songs for Sister Fei. Auntie, did you know? Not long ago, Sister Fei's album sold platinum again, and in this album, there were 12 songs written by Yang Yi. Mo Xiaowan tried her best to talk about Yang Yi. That's not bad. After all, Zhou Mingyu had been in the entertainment industry. She knew that it was difficult to get a platinum album, and she also knew that a songwriter who could write 12 songs in a platinum album was definitely capable. Her frown relaxed a little. Zhou Mingyu's call with Mo Xiaowan lasted for more than an hour. She kept asking about Yang Yi's situation, trying to get a comprehensive understanding of her daughter's choice of husband from an outsider's point of view. When she returned to the farm, she saw Mo Henian angrily carrying his bag out the door. "Old Mo, what are you going to do?" Zhou Mingyu had an ominous feeling in her heart. Did he know? "I'm going back to the country to kill that kid." Mo Henian waved the Remington in his hand and said angrily, "He hid like a turtle for a few years, and this time I finally caught him." Sure enough, he knew. But now was not the time to ask how he knew. Zhou Mengyu hurriedly stopped Imo and said, "Old Imo, don't worry. Your blood pressure is high, and the doctor said you can't be angry." "Move, move." Imo glared and said, "If I can't vent my anger, I won't be able to die in peace." Imo was different from Yang Chongguei. He was more stubborn and irritable. Zhou Mengyu's persuasion had no effect on him. "Hey, put the gun down first. You're going back to the country, why are you still carrying a gun?" Zhou Mengyu had to change her way of persuading. "I'm going to kill that bastard." Imo glared and said, "But you can't bring it back. Do you think he'll let you bring a gun on the plane?" Zhou Mengyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Imo was stunned for a moment. Thinking about it carefully, it was true. So he took a step back and stuffed the gun into his wife's hand and said, "I won't bring the gun. I'll go buy a kitchen knife and chop him up." Zhou Mengyu said softly, "Henian, don't worry, okay? Listen to me, it's not what you think. No matter what you say, I only believe what I see. This bastard abandoned his wife and child and harmed our Murphy for 5 years. Don't you think so?" Imo said, "You're not wrong, but now. No matter what he did to make up for it, I look down on him as a person. He harmed our daughter. Don't tell me I shouldn't beat him up?" Imo interrupted Zhou Mengyu angrily. Zhou Mengyu could only use her hand to comfort Imo chest and let him breathe slowly. She said with a bitter smile, Yes, you should beat him up. But you have to think about it this way. He's a junior, and you're an elder. How can an elder look for a junior? No matter what, you have to let him come here and ask for punishment, right? Her words made sense, and Imo was convinced. However, Imo was only shaken for a moment, and immediately became firm again. "No, he's a damn junior. I don't treat him as one of us. He's just a bastard who deserves a beating. Alright, don't say anything. I have to go back." But you're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.